script. So we'll just start off with additional revenue.
We still have snacks. We don't want you hangry.
I got it.
These are strawberry, I think. They're strawberry.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
You got bling, you got.
Yeah, I got interrupted in the middle.
Thank you very much. See Miss Coffee, we got everybody. Mason. Good afternoon and welcome to the first of approximately 10 work sessions. Colleagues, thank you for humoring my hopefully pleasantly rigid focus on starting on time and ending on time-ish. I'll go on record as saying I did secure childcare for afterwards in case we go to 4:35 instead of 4:30.
But only 5 minutes.
But no, they're actually, but I will be hoping that we can work together. So we are thrilled to have our manager and our proposed budget, and we know we have a lot of work. Maybe thrilled is a different, is not the right adjective, but pleased that all 5 board members are here, and the manager's here. It's over to you, Mr. Schwartz, and then to DMF. And
thank you, Mr.
One last thing.
Sure.
To our treasurer, if she is listening, and also to Ms. Klingler and your team, you're great if you want to stay. It's going to be at least past 2:30 before we get to you. I feel like that sort of marking is a considerate way to run a meeting, and so my apologies for not sharing that with you earlier. You're welcome to stay. You're also welcome to whatever you'd like to do. We will try to take a break a little bit later. Now, back to you, Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So this begins our process of work sessions. We've changed up the order of work sessions a little bit. I thought it was appropriate that, and I've been doing this a long time, and I don't know why it didn't even occur to me before this, that we should talk about our revenue at least a little bit before we talk about our expenses and all the issues we have associated with that. So we're going to have a fairly detailed presentation about the revenue section of the budget. And then also, I know you, Mr. DeFerranti, and I had a conversation back in January. Didn't quite get around to set the table a little bit for the community about where we are demographically. So I know Elizabeth Hardy, she's accused me of being her publicity agent. I just pull her up whenever I think it's important to have her speak. She has 8 slides to go through, which have some really interesting detail in them. And I'm going to turn them over to her, and then we'll take some questions on that, and then over to Danielle Bush, who'll do the revenue presentation. So, Ms. Hardy.
Thank you. Ms. Hardy.
Great. Thank you. Can you hear me? That's
Sure
good?
can.
Okay, great. Great. So good afternoon. Just wanted to provide overview of the population and the age of our population in the county. And what better way to do that than an age-sex pyramid and looking at that. I think traditionally when we hear that, we think of the triangle, which shows that, population is growing. If we look at the US and Virginia, it's more of a cylinder, meaning that it's kind of stable or, not a lot of growth. And you can even see like on the younger years, under 5, it's kind of going in a little bit, meaning there is some contraction there in those years. Then we look at Arlington, and it doesn't look like Virginia or the United States. It looks like a combination of a triangle and a cylinder, right? Like, yeah, a little bit like a Christmas tree, right? So what is going on here with Arlington and our population? Next slide. If we look over the past 10 years, we can see it's pretty much the same shape. However, there are slight differences. You can see in 2014, it actually looks like 2 triangles, right? And then as we're moving along, the bottom triangle kind of comes in, and same in 2024. So next slide. And looking at that 10-year period change, we put them overlaid because it is really hard to see the differences. And if we start at the top, the blue bars are the 2024 population, and the pink bars, or pink lines, are the 2014. So at the top, you can see those, really notice it in 70 and above, that the 2024 population is larger than the 2014 population. So those cohorts are expanding. As we go down to the opposite end, if we look at the under 5, the pink bars are well beyond that of the blue bars, meaning that that population is contracting. So next slide. So this is another way to look at it. It kind of combines two different things. The left chart looks at the age distribution as a percent of Arlington's population. So we have it for 2014, 19, and 24. And then the right chart shows the growth rate of the actual population for those same cohorts. So we start with the under 5 population. The overall percentage declined from about 6% to just under 5% in those 10 years. If we look at the growth rate, we had a decline of 21% in that population. As we move on to those 5 to 19, you can see that the percent of the population increased, and the growth rate increased by 27%. However, there is a big caveat to this. Those age 10 and older were born prior to 2017 when the birth rate was high. So that means that there's a bubble in that population that you can see moving through when you break it down by 1 year age. So that 10 to 19 population is not followed by the same amount of kids behind it. Moving to age 20 to 34. In 2014, it looks like it was really high, big percentage. But in 2014, let's think about where we are. The oldest millennials were 32. So pretty much in 2014, that whole age group, the 20 to 34, were millennials, and that was 27% of all U.S. population, right? So it's just a big age group then. And we can see it declined by about 6% over the 10 years, and that's just because that population, the millennials, are aging through. As we go to 35 to 49 and same 50 to 64, the percentage of the population went down slightly, but overall growth rate increased 3% and 4%. And then we get to those 65 and older. So we can see that they went up from under 10% to about 12.5% of Arlington's population, and in absolute numbers, they grew by 48%. So next slide. And this is just some information to put out there about the Arlington's enrollment, APS school enrollment. This all can be found online. This is the most recent enrollment projections. I know it's kind of tiny, but the chart at the top shows the change year over year in the blue bars, and then the percent change in the orange line. So you can see to the right, when we get to 1920, there was a decline in the school enrollment. That was because of the pandemic. But as we move on, you can see the growth has not returned back to that pre-pandemic levels. And then the chart at the bottom is just the fall enrollment and the school projections in 1, 5, and 10 year out. Next slide. And just throwing this up there because I always think it's very interesting. The annual burst to Arlington residents marked the part in 2016 where it was the highest, so 3,200 burst to Arlington residents, and that has been pretty much declining ever since. Next slide. If we look at the change in births since 2007, and 2007 is a benchmark year because it's the year that there were the highest births in the United States ever. So we look at that as how births have changed compared to that 2007 number. And again, 2016 is the highest. And that period between 2011 and 2016, we had a bump, but that was really abnormal. We had people stayed here after the recession. We had a lot of jobs, families stayed here, and that's why we saw a continued high birth rate in those years. But again, declined since then. Okay, next slide. So these are just some things to consider, think about. Arlington Public Schools, they deliver education services and are a safety net for students during school hours. The APS enrollment declined in 2020, and the subsequent enrollment growth rates have not returned to pre-pandemic levels, which can potentially affect future services and needs. The county government provides services and support beyond school hours, extending assistance not only to students, but also their families and the county as a whole. And then also think about Arlington's aging population. Will require the county to expand and diversify its services to meet the growing needs of older residents. And I think that's it, right? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hardy. Really appreciate the presentation. We have budgeted a little bit of time, but we don't. It's up to you, colleagues, if you have questions in this area. Just to set the table, I don't see lights at the moment, but I'm not. I do want to be open. I'll just stress test a couple of assumptions that I've been making on income. I've been in the category of saying roughly that half of our population as a household earns over $150,000 a year. Does that sound way off, or does that sound in the ballpark?
That's in the ballpark. I think we would have to look back at the median income. It was normally around higher 130s, 140s, so it's in the ballpark, yes.
Okay, got it. And we also have that group of maybe 24,000 folks under our poverty line, which roughly is 49,000 for a household of 4 in Arlington. Does that sound roughly in the ballpark?
Yes, it does.
Got it. So we have this community with immense prosperity, but we also do have thousands, over 20,000, who are in a different economic circumstance. And that is different from the slides, but I just feel like that reality, that sort of those two almost bipolar data points are not ones that I feel confident that our broader community as a whole in full keeps in their mind at the same time. And I just think that that's important. So those are my questions. I have a timer so that all of our questions are less than 3 minutes, because if you're asking a more than 3-minute question, that's different, but I'll open it because I've asked questions. These are important pieces, and really appreciate your sharing them with us. Mr. Kiritonis.
So I will start. Thank you for the good refresher on demographics. We should also, when we talk about AMI, incomes, et cetera, we should say per household. So that's an important qualifier because it's not.
Sure.
I have 2 questions that are directly referencing your presentation. Number one is a significant change for me is the cohort of 20 to 34. And my question is the following. How do we correlate with that? I mean, these are very productive people. I guess at 5 to 19 is still, in formation. They don't earn too much, et cetera. There's a famous rule of thumb under economists that 2/3 of the economic impact of a job is always local. So most local governments try to harness this potential, right? So 2 things are happening for me here. We're losing a significant percentage of our very active starting population here. And the second thing that I want to ask is, if this is the bracket that contracts, what does it mean for other things, like, for example, for APS enrollment, et cetera? These are, for example, people who typically, I would expect, contribute to enrollment in APS, and if they move, they do 2 things. One is they take away economic potential, and the second thing is they also, don't contribute to the enrollment of APS. What I'm after is to find out what are the cohorts we need to pay a lot of attention when it comes to revenue, since this is the theme of the day, because the higher up is expenditure, which is the theme for a different day.
Right, so those are great points, and those age 20 to 34 are very mobile, right? We have a huge share coming in and a huge share leaving and moving within the county. So while it's easier to look at, births and deaths and understanding what's changing with population that way, it's very difficult to see the population change by migration. But we can definitely see, based on the age-sex pyramid, that those 35 to 49 are not here at the same rate as those, 20 to 34. However, in terms of how we relate to schools, I should have looked up the average age for births for the mother in Arlington. I know it's high, it's in the 30s. So I think that 20 to 34 is really not in that prime birth age for Arlington residents. I will confirm that and get you that information. It's really the 35 to 49. They're in that age group when they're more settled and more in staying here and can afford to buy a home. I think those 20 to 34s, if they are having babies here, they're probably not going to stay.
Okay, so fine, that's one thing. The second thing is, so 35 to 49 is growing moderately. That contrasts a little bit from what we hear in the region, that this is a cohort that typically has a net positive outmigration or net negative outmigration. Are we performing better there?
Well, I think it has to do, again, with the millennial population. That's just such a big age group. As that moves through, it's going to inflate those numbers. So, as we get to 2024, the millennials the oldest are 42, 43. So they're falling in that age group. So you might not see a big of a decline just because there is so many in that population.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carantonis. Ms. Cunningham.
I have a question about how immigration is impacting this, or how that may project forward in the next couple of years by age group.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, births and deaths and migration are the key things that change a population. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have any data on immigration over the past year, but definitely if we're not having higher rates, we will see a change in our population, or it will not grow as fast as it has in the past.
And do you have a sense of by age group whether there's a strong difference there? I'd assume more of the immigration is in the younger.
Yeah, I would say it would probably in the younger, the working age population is probably where it's impacted the most, and subsequent if they have children as well.
Thank you.
Great. Appreciate the question. Numerically, 21 or 25% of Arlington's population is foreign-born. I'm trying to remember, am I ballpark correct?
Isn't me today.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
get too precise, but I did quote it a
Yes.
couple months ago.
Yes.
Somewhere above 20%, I believe.
In the low 20s, yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Ms. Coffey, Vice Chair Coffey.
Yeah, I think for me, some of, there's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation here, but in particular, looking at that 20 to 34 and the under 5 together, really thinking about projections and long term, which are so hard with population because no one knows what things are going to change. But I think, my lived experience, right, is I'm 30. The people 10 years older than me were at my age in a significantly better financial position at 30 than I am today. And so I think looking at that instability going forward, the younger millennials and Gen Z are not, if an older millennial was able to get to a point of being able to have kids at, 35 to 40, I think the younger millennials are going to be waiting 40 to 45 is my guess, because the cost of living has gone up so much. The barriers to actually settling down in Arlington are immensely higher than they were 10 years ago. Both a combination of home prices, childcare prices, but interest rates is the other really, really big one that we have no control over here. And so I think this is not a question, so don't worry, but it just really, it strikes me as very important as we see that younger millennial Gen Z cohort start to move through both the decision around whether to settle and have kids, or if people are going to do that, whether they leave in order to achieve those kinds of family planning goals that they have is going to really deeply impact the under 5 cohort in the future, because the folks who are going to have kids may not choose to have them here. And the folks who choose to have them here are going to have less kids than they used to. So I think, it's a chicken and egg, because we can't make people stay here, but also one of the ways that we push people out is around cost of living. And so it is a real challenge that I personally feel very deeply.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. With 2 under 5 years old, keep hope alive, should that be of interest to you, is my anecdotal, but trying not to be, everyone's got their own best way, and when they wake up at 3:30, sometimes you wonder about the decision, but thrilled on the big picture. Mr. Spain.
Well, I guess I will keep in the same vein of kind of focusing between the 20 to 34-year-old age bracket. And if we can pull up your last slide real quick. And I have a great appreciation for these slides, Mr. Manager, since I think we received them 20 minutes ago to kind of go over. So I haven't had too long to digest these. But what I will say, can we share it? Is it up on the screen? Slide, the last slide. So when I read this, right, and based on this limited conversation, high emphasis on, students, and aging population and government. But based on what we just said, that last bullet point kind of gives me the EBGBs, Mr. Chair. Those are your lines. I think when we look at the 20 to 34-year-olds, from an equity position, right? Knowing all the factors that play into what the Vice Chair just stated, the question becomes, Arlington, we can rephrase this, but how do we provide the right services? I think it should be a clarifying statement there to address the issue as it relates to the age bracket that we just talked about, given all the many factors that have been addressed. We've done things with home ownership through a study, we've done a myriad of other things, but how do we, not only invest in those that are becoming seniors, we see the population growing and staying here, how do we continue to incentivize, and keep those individuals that we just talked about, the 20 to 34-year-olds here in Arlington? So I would like, would you be open to, considering that in that last bullet, not just emphasis on the aging population, but the population we just spoke about? Any thoughts?
I agree that, the 24 age group is an important age group. Definitely need, I don't know what else to say. It's a tough question, yeah.
Well, the thing is, we know what the problem, we know there's an issue, it's how we're going to address it, right? So I'll just leave it there for right now. This has been helpful, and as a person, who has a 33, a 31, and a 26-year-old here in Arlington, and a 4.5-year-old granddaughter, Matt, we do need to prepare them for the future. It's tough out there. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain, and appreciate you focusing in. It's great to get this draft, I think, last night, and then we did get one additional slide. I will say, just to note, and then we'll move on, hopefully I'll ask for grace, the cost of the home ownership study estimate, fully funding it, is $2.5 million in additional revenue. That could, and it could have grown since then, but that could try to address the 20 to 34 demographic as far as staying. But leave it to you, Mr. Schwartz, to wrap up as we move to our next revenue piece.
Thanks, Elizabeth. You can run if you'd like. I just think it's getting to Mr. Spain's question. When we go through the revenue presentation, there are issues associated with various and Danielle's going to talk about real estate tax relief and other kinds of programs that we have that definitely have an intersection with the way our population cohorts work. So that was meant to provide the background for that, and that also, as I've talked with some of you about, as the community, a higher percentage of our community is older, I'm not saying that that's the majority, then you'll see some of those impacts, I think, as you go through the budget presentations. You'll see there's additional service needs and various age cohorts related to this. So that was really sort of just to provide a little bit of an appetizer. With that, I'll go to the main course. Over to you, Danielle.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Manager, I have a PSA for everybody who is an aficionado of demographics. If you go to the Arlington website, arlingtonva.us, and you find your, on the bottom right corner, Ava, our chat bot, ask them, where do I find Arlington demographics? There is a wealth of work by Ms. Hardy, Ms. Bolling, if I remember correctly, and it comes in 3. There is a dashboard that goes down to corridor, neighborhood statistics, etc. There is the Arlington profile, which is our, gives you an idea of the economic makeup of Arlington County, and the census tracts. So that's amazing stuff for everybody who wants to dive into that.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Over to you, Ms. Bush.
Good afternoon, members of the County Board. Thank you for having me here today to discuss revenues. I will be going through a variety of topics during this presentation, to include what we are seeing in the current economic environment and a preview of how tax revenues are trending in this current fiscal year. Additionally, I will be talking about the shifting in the overall economic landscape. Lastly, I will be covering various revenue pieces that were included in the fiscal year 27 proposed budget.
Ms. Bush, just for colleagues' awareness, I propose after about the 15th slide, there's a break point wherein I will ask if we can do one round of questions, just so, because there's a lot of slides to digest, if that's okay with Ms. Bush, and just giving a heads up to colleagues that that's the current plan. It may be the 16th, depending on the version of it, but there's a natural break point. Back to you, Ms. Bush.
Sure, thank you. Next slide, please. The local economy is currently showing mixed signals. Unemployment remains high in the most recently released data for December. Office vacancy remains high, but showing signs of stabilizing. Hotel occupancy rates are down. The residential market seems to remain healthy for now, with the average home sold price up 4% compared to the prior year. Mortgage rates are declining, and CPI seems to be headed in the right direction. Multifamily rent is showing slight declines, reflecting the high unemployment rate in our area. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here is a preview of where tax revenues are currently trending for fiscal year 26. Real estate revenues are projected to come in over budget for a few reasons. Calendar year 26 real estate assessments came in slightly lower than we had projected in the fiscal year 26 adopted budget. Because of this, we would have seen a revenue shortfall in the current fiscal year. The one-time funds from the proposed and potentially advertised real estate tax rate increase offsets the shortfall that we would have otherwise seen in this fiscal year. The second reason, current refund trends are trending lower than the $15 million refund budget that we have set aside. Business license revenues do not come in until February and March. We will have a better sense of where this revenue source will land towards the end of March and into April. As we have mentioned, we are concerned that this revenue source will not meet budget due to the current economic environment and a potential contraction of the business environment. Currently, sales tax is anticipated to meet budget. For meals and TOT, as I have mentioned, meals is up year-to-date compared to prior year of 1.8%. This is adjusted for the rate increase. And hotel taxes are down 8.2% compared to the prior year. These declines and slower growth in meals tax due to the regional uncertainty, weakened consumer sentiment, government shutdowns are having an impact on the revenues generated from both of these local tax sources. In addition, the snowstorm several weeks ago will further increase the pressure here, which we will not have a sense of until around April. Other local taxes are projected to meet budget at this time. We are seeing pressure on car rental tax, but losses here will likely be offset by recordation tax, which is doing very well. We will come back to you later this month with a full analysis of our mid-year projections. Next slide, please. Thank you. These charts show the seasonality of sales, meals, and transient occupancy hotel tax, which are our three tax sources that are generally the most economically sensitive. With the exception of sales, which we have February data for because it is received as a single monthly payment from the state, we currently only have final actuals through January. As you can see from the green lines, sales is doing okay. Meals has been up and down compared to prior years, but currently trending at 1.8% increase year to date. And hotel taxes have consistently been lower compared to last year. As I referenced on the previous slides, there is a lag for when meals, sales, and hotel activity occurs, like the actual purchase of a meal or a hotel stay, and when we see final revenues. This chart shows when activity occurs and when we are aware of final revenues. At the bottom of this chart for B-Poll, March 1 is the due date for receipts. The majority of revenues come in February and March, so our projections for this tax source generally lag compared to others. The next several slides will discuss various shifts in Arlington's economic landscapes that have been taking shape over the past several years. We are seeing three structural patterns impacting our revenue composition and fiscal outlook. First, a greater reliance on our local tax-based revenues. Second, instability and shift of our commercial office market post-pandemic. Third, as we have already discussed in prior slides, a shift in our consumer travel and spending, which we are hopeful is temporary, but there is no guarantee. The next several slides will discuss the first two shifts in greater detail. As you can see from these pie charts, over time, we have become significantly more reliant on local taxes. While federal and state revenues have declined as our share of our funding mix. In 1985, the chart at the top left, local taxes represented about 70% of our general fund revenues. By 2027, that share has increased to about 83%. Meanwhile, state and federal revenues have declined from about 16 to 7 in fiscal year 2027. While the overall budget has grown substantially, the composition of revenues have shifted. We are increasingly dependent on the strength of our local economy and local tax base. In addition to a greater reliance on our local economy and tax revenues, we have seen the commercial office market sector over the past several years undergoing a structural change post-pandemic, not just a temporary downturn. The blue line in the graph represents the percentage share of commercial assessments, excluding apartments, by year, which, as you can see, continued to decline post-pandemic due to continued high office vacancy rates driven by the overall change in work patterns. This graph shows the year-over-year percent change of real estate assessment values. We are seeing growth in residential and apartment values, which are helping to offset, but not fully replacing, declines in the commercial office market, leading to modest overall growth in recent years. As you saw on the previous slide, the composition of tax base is shifting, a greater share borne by residential property owners and a reduced contribution from the commercial office. The prior 50-50 split between residential and commercial that once benefited us has been narrowing, and due to the heavier reliance on local taxes, these commercial shifts have amplified the fiscal impact. While we are seeing structural changes in our revenue tax base, our flexibility to respond is limited. Arlington operates under the Dillon Rule, which means that we can only levy taxes and fees that are expressly authorized by the Commonwealth. Unlike some states with broader authority, our revenue tools are more limited. The Commonwealth sets the maximum tax rate for a variety of our tax sources, including transient occupancy hotel tax, meals, sales, and business license. Real estate, personal property, and business tangible rates are not restricted by the state. I think here is where you wanted to pause for questions.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation to this point. Colleagues, are there questions, or should we keep going? Mr. Spain, keep going. Ms. Coffey, everybody is, you had one question.
Yes, and it doesn't need to be answered immediately. So last year, we had a slide where we had compared over a decade the average increase in revenue versus the average increase in expenditures, which is always it's the increase that we said, for example, the decadal average of increase in expenses, or the cost of general governance would inflate by 4.3, 4.4%, while the average on a decadal basis increase in revenue would trail behind at 2.7%, just the increase figures, not the absolute figures. So do we have that for this year, or does it make any sense, or is it not a good approximation to show, the relative difference in dynamics?
Yes, we can provide that as follow-up. We do have a slide that shows our homeowner average expenses, the tax and fee burden that we typically show.
Just the absolute numbers.
Yes, versus the expense increase that the operating for the county government year over year.
Thank you. We'll follow up on that. I think the beauty of talking about the dynamics is how fast, or what is the steady pace of how more expensive every year, how nominally more expensive every year general governance becomes. Wages are going up, maintenance costs are going up, and whether or not the revenue, the whole of revenue follows this dynamic, or it has structural characteristics that make it trail behind, because this was the insight from last year's discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Caratonis. So that's a flag for the wizards who are watching and have the follow-ups to us. There may be a slide to look at from last year, and then it may be the numeric, I think, that's related to the bar chart that you just showed. Are there other questions at this point? I will just ask this one because I debated. The meals tax is higher now, but we're projecting lower net. Is that because DC may stabilize on the meals tax, or do we have any insight from one of the wizards of our estimation team as to why at the end of the year we project lower than the 1.8% that we're up right now?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the reason that you're seeing a decline comparing fiscal year 27 proposed to fiscal year 26 is because when we were developing the fiscal year 26 adopted budget, meals tax was growing at about a rate of 5%. So you're already seeing an inflated 26 budget when you're comparing it to 27, and that's why it's dropping slightly. And 27 budget will be in a better place because it's not growing by such a large increment to capture the current activity that's occurring.
Great. Thank you. I should have remembered that, though maybe your first presentation, you have been at the center of estimating all these numbers, it seems, for multiple years. So you've gotten that glory. So just appreciate it. We'll go on to the next slide, which I think is 15 or 16.
All right. As part of the fiscal year 27 proposed budget process, and as requested in the board's budget guidance, we conducted a review of each of the local tax sources that is not already at its maximum rate or restricted by the state. Business license rates are set by the state based on section code. The two largest categories that make up about 56% of BPOL revenues are professional and specialized. There is potential increase to some of these rates. However, higher rates impact our economic competitiveness. Vehicle personal property and business tangible rates are not capped by the state. As we will discuss in greater detail in the following slides, the average conventional and clean fuel vehicle may already see a slight increase in their vehicle tax bill due to the proposed PPTRA allocation changes. Our review of commercial utility rates for electricity and natural gas showed that there is capacity to increase these rates. While the data we used for analysis was imperfect and based on averages, actual utility data would likely reveal that allowable rate increases would be around 100% for natural gas and greater than 100% for electricity. The proposed budget keeps these rates flat due to the already elevated electricity prices and ongoing market volatility. Meals. Effective July 1, 2025, our meals tax rate was increased from 4% to 5%, which is the first time the rate has been changed since it was first instituted in 1991. The state max allows us to increase another percent to 6%, which would generate around $13 million. The proposed budget leaves this rate at the existing 5% because of the recent increase and because this market is already facing cost pressures. Lastly, the real estate tax rate is not capped by the state. The proposed budget included a $0.015 increase to the rate, and a 2-cent increase to the rate was advertised.
So if I can just make a little commentary in addition to what Danielle just went through, and the managers mentioned this in the development of the budget. You gave guidance to look across tax sources. We spent a lot of time with the commissioner, who will come up later, and the treasurer, and the information that they have. We spent time with CPHD on the demographic data, and we looked across these different tax sources to internally assess its impact on whether it's residents or businesses. And we raised the meals tax last year 1%. So we thought maybe that's not a place to go in the current economic environment with contraction of the consumption taxes. It had been a couple years on real estate. We looked at BPOL and at commercial utility. That obviously impacts the commercial sector a little stronger. And again, with what we're seeing in the uncertainty, the manager took a decision to make a recommendation on the real estate tax rate. But we did look across all the different options, sort of assess who they're impacting, both demographically and in terms of a location within the county and across age groups. So that was just part of the work that Danielle and others did through the budget process to come forward with a final recommendation of an increase on the real estate tax.
Thank you. That's very helpful context that I think adds to the analysis of this slide. I appreciate it, Mr. Stevenson. Ms. Bush.
In addition to reviewing various tax sources, we also analyzed our PPTRA allocation. In 2004, the State General Assembly fundamentally changed the Personal Property Tax Relief Act, enacted in 1998. Beginning in fiscal year 2007, the county began receiving an annual fixed block grant from the state as a replacement of the 70% reimbursement for vehicle taxes assessed at or below $20,000, which was previously provided under PPTRA. The amount of money from the state, which is $31.3 million, remains fixed, regardless of the growth in the number of vehicles or vehicle value. The county is required to use this block grant money to reduce the tax liability on the portion of vehicles' values assessed below $20,000. As you can see from the bar chart above, in calendar year 25, the county relieved a total amount of around $37.2 million of vehicle taxes, or $5.9 million of this relief required the use of net tax support funding. The manager's proposed budget includes a new allocation methodology that would relieve 100% of the tax on the first $4,000 of assessed value, which is up from $3,000 from last year, and 14% for conventional and 40% for clean fuel for the remaining $16,000 of assessed value. Both of these percentages are down 10% from the prior year. This proposal is designed to help those with lower value vehicles, in addition to reducing our net tax support contribution by an estimated $1.2 million to vehicle tax relief. In the next slide, I will provide various examples of the changes that residents may see due to this allocation change. Due to the proposed PPTRA adjustments, the average conventional vehicle may see a $1 increase in their tax bill, while the average clean fuel vehicle may see a $55 increase. These examples assume that the vehicle value remains the same. The average vehicle value in the county is down slightly compared to the prior year, so that may help to fully or partially offset any increase due to this change. Additionally, as shown in the tables, lower value vehicles will likely see a decline in their tax amount they are responsible for, while vehicle values above $12,000 for both conventional and clean fuel would see an increase in their tax bill due to lower net tax support relief provided by the county. The treasurer will also provide additional detail on this topic in her presentation. This table shows the estimated tax and fee burden for the average homeowner in Arlington. The real estate tax payment is estimated to go up $422, which includes a $289 increase due to assessment growth and $132 for the proposed 1.5-cent increase to the rate. At the advertised 2-cent increase, the average homeowner would see a $466 increase, and the average apartment dweller would see a $316 increase. We saw a small decrease to the average value of a vehicle in the county, which equates to an estimated $1 decrease to the average household. Additionally, the average household would see a $10 annual increase for their stormwater utility and a $13 annual increase for their water and sewer service. With each of these proposed changes, the average household would see an annual increase of $444 or $37 a month based on the proposed tax rate, or $488 or $41 based on the advertised tax rate. The average apartment renter would see an increase of around $297 or about $25 a month at the proposed rate, or $316 or $26 a month at the advertised rate. This assumes that the increase is directly passed on to the renter from the landlord. The fiscal year 27 proposed budget does not include a household solid waste rate advertisement. Any rate adjustment will be advertised and adopted at a later date. Water and sewer rates would increase by approximately 1.5% based on the increase to both volumetric and base charges. The median residential customer would see a $13 increase per year. The current stormwater utility rate of $258 per equivalent residential unit is proposed to increase to $268 per ERU. The average single-family household would see an annual increase of $10. There are a number of other proposed fee adjustments or new fees being recommended in various departments to better align fee levels with the cost of providing these services. As part of the process in reviewing tax rates, we reviewed Arlington's housing and income landscape, household composition, and indicators of financial stress, and analyzed home values by area and race, and vehicle values by zip code. Then, we assessed potential impacts of the proposed real estate tax increases and vehicle tax relief adjustments across varying home and vehicle values. Overall, there are many scenarios within Arlington. but high level, the proposed real estate tax rate increase is likely to have a greater financial impact on owners of higher value homes, while the proposed personal property tax relief adjustment is designed to provide proportionately greater benefit to owners with lower value vehicles.
No, thank you, Mr. Schwartz, but we'll just keep going through the end unless colleagues have objection. Yep.
Now I will provide you with an overview of our fiscal year 27 proposed revenues. For fiscal year 27, local taxes make up about 83% of revenues, followed by charges for services at 5%, use of money and property at 2%, license, permits and fees, and miscellaneous revenues at 1% each. Revenues from the state and federal government at 7%, and fund balance at less than 1%. I will go into detail of each of these categories in future slides. Of the local tax revenues, real estate tax revenues make up almost 70% of our local tax revenues, or 50% of total general fund revenues without fund balance. Personal property tax revenues make up almost 11% of our local tax revenues, followed by B-Pool at 7%, meals at 5%, sales at 4%, TOT hotel taxes at 2%, and followed by other smaller tax sources. Local tax revenues in the fiscal year 27 proposed budget increased by 1% over the fiscal year 26 adopted budget. Real estate tax revenues see an increase of 3% due to a combination of calendar year 26 assessment growth of 1.1%, a decrease to the refund budget to $14 million from the previous $15 million, and additional funds associated with the 1.5-cent proposed real estate tax rate increase. Personal property increases by 1% overall, primarily due to the proposed PPTRA allocation adjustments, which will reduce net tax support relief by $1.2 million. In addition, business tangible revenues are expected to see slight growth. These increases are offset by the projected slight decline in vehicle personal property tax receipts to better align with actuals and due to the slight decline in existing vehicle values. B-Poll is adjusted down 2% from fiscal year 26 adopted levels to reflect the current uncertainty of our local economic environment and the potential contraction of the local business environment. Sales tax revenues continue to perform well and are projected to increase 3% above fiscal year 26 adopted budget levels. Meals and hotel taxes are adjusted down to reflect recent trends and actuals. Lastly, other taxes are expected to remain relatively flat. As I have mentioned, real estate tax revenues make up almost 70% of our local tax revenues, or 50% of total general fund revenues without fund balance, projected to generate $963.1 million at the proposed tax rate. Both owners of residential and commercial properties pay real estate taxes. Historically, the assessment split between commercial and residential properties has been 50-50. But as we have discussed, this gap has widened in recent years, with the calendar year 26 split being 57% residential and 43% commercial. Revenue growth of real estate tax revenues is dependent on 3 things: assessment growth, new construction coming online, and the tax rate. The total $963.1 million in real estate tax revenues are net of various tax revenue carve-outs. The Crystal City TIF, Columbia Pike TIF, and Ballston Quarter TIF redirect and segregate a portion of the increased property tax revenues based on an initial baseline that would normally flow to the general fund to be used for specific purposes. In addition, budget is set aside for tax relief for elderly and disabled, as well as the state-required relief for disabled veterans and surviving spouses. The average residential assessment includes single-family detached, townhomes, and condos. The average residential assessment increased by 3.28% from calendar year 25 to calendar year 26. And the average apartment value increased by 6.7% from calendar year 25 to calendar year 26. This slide includes calendar year 25 adopted real estate tax rates, along with some calendar year 26 proposed rates for surrounding jurisdictions. We will update this slide as we move through the budget process to show how our surrounding jurisdictions are addressing their real estate tax rate and proposing their budget. Here is a summary of our non-tax revenues. License, permits, and fee revenues are projected to see an increase of 7%, primarily due to an increase in the number of operational speed cameras, increases to parking ticket revenue due to projected impacts of increased parking enforcement, and the addition of an out-of-state penalty fee in the Commissioner of Revenue's office. The 23% decrease in the use of money and property category is primarily due to lower general and bond interest revenue projected due to declining interest rates on invested monies. Outside charges for services increases by 6%, primarily due to parking meter trends and an increase in indirect administrative charges for services provided to other funds. State and federal revenues increased by 4% due to increases in the Commonwealth Highway Aid funds, compensation board funds, along with funding provided to both DES and DHS. Federal government revenues decline primarily due to the termination of the Urban Area Security Initiative Regional Preparedness Grant. Just as a reminder, in fiscal year 25, the county and schools received almost $100 million in either direct funding, direct federal funding, or federal funding which flowed through the state. There is still risk that some of these funding areas could be impacted by additional changes at the federal or state levels. As you can see from the numbers above, two of the largest buckets of funding are for transportation planning and construction, along with housing choice vouchers at $26.6 million. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bush, for the thorough preparation and the excellent slides. Really appreciate it. Colleagues, we'll now we'll go through rounds of questions. I am happy to share. I see your light, Ms. Coffey. Over to you first.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a follow-up question because it would really deeply surprise me if you know this off the top of your head. But I would be interested, the commercial utility rates, I feel like is a kind of newer to me thing. And I definitely understand not wanting, with the volatility around energy right now, to do anything about it, but I would be interested in seeing some regional benchmarking. I presume our neighbors set rates on things as well. And you have that. Oh my gosh, our staff are so impressive.
You can read how small it is.
Yeah, sure. So when I did do the electricity and natural gas analysis, it looked like we are towards, for electricity, we are towards, based on the current rates and the current rate of our jurisdictions, I looked at Alexandria Falls Church, Fairfax County, Loudoun, and Prince William. We are towards the top. It looks like we are the highest based on that analysis looking at it. But I also want to note that, like, for instance, Alexandria Falls Church and the city of Fairfax also have a water tax. So that we should also consider that as part of it. They might be more in line with us. And then for natural gas, it was the same thing. We were also one of the highest, but again, if you included the water tax in that, they might be a little bit more aligned with us.
So other jurisdictions have a water tax and we have no water rate?
We do not have a water tax. We have a tax on natural gas based on consumption and also electricity.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, there's a table in the back of the revenue section of the budget that does at least a calendar 2025 comparison of local jurisdictions and the different rates. So they, across the region, some cap the max that they'll tax a business, others do not. And then they have varying rates per kilowatt or 100 cubic feet of gas. So that if county wanted to pursue this, we would have to work with Dominion and Washington Gas to get their data on usage to know what the revenue impact would be for the county. But we looked at it broadly, along with the other factors that Danielle talked about through this process the last couple of months.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. The one thought I have is that since you're reading it, it might help. I mean, they're factoring water tax plus the way we calculate all the other, being at the top. There could be some additional work that could be done, or it could be shown on this page. But it might be helpful, just since not all of us have read every page. Can you just share the page number for Ms. Coffey?
183.
I didn't see it until then. Of course, just when I was sitting there, it came up. But maybe that'll help save a little bit of time. And I would say at this moment, maybe Ms. Coffey, you will put it in your bucket to follow up if you want the synthesis of the water tax plus the other way that we figure it out, done in detail to figure out where we rank. We'll leave it with you on that one.
Yeah, and I think this is more likely to be a not this budget cycle thing, though it is interesting, and I would love to kind of dive in at a post-April 21st date on how this all interrelates. I think it's certainly a different, deeper topic than things we've talked about in our last couple of budgets. And so, but that does not mean with all of the urgent work we have to do now that we need to be educating me at this moment. So thank you, though. I'll have a couple of comments, but I'm good on questions.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. Mr. Spain?
My light's not on yet.
Okay, yes. I just wanted to give the opportunity because some of us are counting, and me and Takis used up a question, so it's going a little early. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did want to add one thing because, I'd say to each member of the board, so, we have conversations as we're preparing the budget. I was asked the question by each of you, is there a way that when we're talking about raising revenues that we can make the revenues, the revenue increases to the extent that we have to do them fall on people who can, I'll say, these are my words, not yours, more easily afford it because they're doing better under some legislative changes that were made at the federal level. And I know, Takis, you and I had very long conversations about that. And you can see we have some very imperfect taxing tools to use. And so, but we've really spent a lot of time with an eye towards, I'll call it equity, and looking at each of these to see what we could do. And you can see the tax authority that we have as a county. I mean, it seems to have been created in the House of Burgesses and not changed since then. So it's a very imperfect set of tools. But we did find when looking at the utility tax on the commercial side that there was a fair amount of headroom for us. But I'm not sure at the end of the day that that is the kind of message we wanted to send. So our default, when you asked us to go back and look at revenues, was the real estate tax. And also the changes we made to the personal property tax, which I don't think you've asked questions on yet, a very imperfect tool, but we tried by raising that exemption from 3,000 to 4,000 and doing the zip code analysis. We make a series of assumptions that hopefully that will lessen the burden on some people in some census tracts that make lower incomes. But again, it is really a reach for me to say that there's anything comprehensive that all hangs together here.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. And keeping in mind there will be lights. I don't see them yet. I'm going to just ask, oh, yours is on? Go ahead. At least on the car piece, if you're okay, I'll just ask this question and won't have as many others because it's one of the few I highlighted. So 20,000, there's a vehicle worth more than $20,000. There's a slight increase, but it is my impression that, and there are, never thought this would be the case, but there are a lot of cars, well over $30,000, $40,000. They could see a significantly more dollar increase because of the rate than just the amount in those slides. Is that a fair guess?
That's correct. So the state provides relief, and it's up to the county's discretion on how that relief is dispersed for assessed values below $20,000. So if you have a vehicle that is, worth $30,000, you're paying the full tax on that, anything above $20,000. But for vehicles that are higher dollar value, we'll see a larger increase because now we have increased that first bucket of relief from $3,000. Last year, people would get 100% tax relief on the first $3,000. Now it's $4,000. So a lot of the relief is now being redirected there. And then those values, if you're a clean fuel vehicle, you'll now be seeing 40% relief, and for conventional, you'll be now seeing a 14% relief for the $16,000 above $4,000.
Great, thank you. I suspect people are gonna, when they see their car assessment, there's a fair number of folks consistent with what I believe is right policy who are gonna see a significant increase. And I just wanted to say that out loud because I'd rather name it than have it be a surprise. Ms. Cunningham.
I just wanted to second the question about the utility cost taxes for next year, not necessarily for this year, but I think maybe in conjunction with our climate and air team thinking about, is there a way to raise that tax and use it to incent savings for the businesses as well. So we know that we've done a lot on the county side to manage our carbon footprint and climate impacts, but we need the commercial sector and residents to do their part, and that just might be a nice place to think about those trade-offs so that we incent really good behavior. On that same page, while you were there, I was going to flag the cigarette tax. It seems like we are still very much lagging others on the cigarette tax rate, and I wonder, has that also been studied and considered, or am I just misreading it because there's the city-county thing?
We're at the state max.
For county.
And the commissioner will come and talk about in their presentation of applying for the cigarette board that may give us more future capacity on that.
Perfect. Okay, and then on the personal property tax, the state gives us some bucket of money to do the relief, but we are further subsidizing it as well, right? By 9 or 10 million, is that right?
That's correct. The state gives us $31.3 million, and we are giving $5.9 million of net tax support over and above that.
And if I could just observe, I'm not sure that in the last set of budgets that I can remember that the board's ever really had an out loud conversation about the fact that we were doing this additional subsidy above and beyond what the state was giving us. So I don't want to say it was a surprise to me, but we focused on it. And that's one place where we're saying we think it's appropriate to take a step back. The other thing is we're very intentional. About 10 years ago, the board did subsidize up to a certain dollar value, 100% of clean fuel vehicles. And then that was ratcheted down to 50%. And I think, when did that stop? About 10 years ago? We stopped doing that?
It came down to 53.
Right. So I'm going to make an assertion here, which you can all disagree with, and members of the Sierra Club can feel free to write in, which is that since my proposal lowers that from 50% to 40%, I do not believe that people are making the decision to purchase a clean fuel vehicle based on the amount of the percentage they're getting forgiven by the county. And I think the prevalence of clean fuel vehicles in Arlington County has been, despite any policy, I hate to say this, any tax policy the county boards come up with on PPTRA. And I would be looking forward in the future to have that number come down further, because what it does do then allows us to redistribute the funds in a way that's more economically equitable. Now that's my feeling, and three of you can tell me you feel differently.
I appreciate that, yeah. And I think just in a year where we have incredible revenue pressures and expense pressures, I would ask my colleagues that we do consider whether we want to further subsidize both of those things, whether we further subsidize the relief or we begin to taper back from that, and also whether we begin to taper. You guys have recommended some taper, but a more aggressive taper on the green vehicles as well.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. And that's one I actually want to flag for our policy director as well, listening. I think, just to make sure I understand correctly, there are multiple levers. You could look to 50 or 40% this year, which we will hear from the Sierra Club on, and that's fine. But you also highlighted what I had not paid attention to is the overall revenue support that we're doing for cars. And I'm not in a never drive a car. That's not my world, but I am, the level of subsidy is a question. And just so I understand correctly, we have full discretion there to save some money, not to say that it would be popular, but to save additional money by reducing our subsidy of cars. Is that a fair characterization? We don't have an advertising problem on this. No. We have full discretion.
That's correct. Yeah, we are currently giving out $37.2 million compared to the $31.3 million, and that is correct. The state allows us full discretion for how we choose to disperse those funds. I've briefly looked at how other jurisdictions do it, and some jurisdictions don't even give the specific green percentage much higher than conventional. So there's various ways we could look at doing it.
Is it fair to say that we would need to do some quick thinking about this to further work with the formulas of the 4,000 and below, and to accomplish the goal that Ms. Cunningham is describing? And sorry to ask so many questions, but this is very interesting to me. We would have to do some early math in order to do it, or is that something that we'd have some weeks, we just don't need to surprise you coming late?
The county attorney can correct me, but the way we advertise, it gives that discretion in there to move the percentages and the structure of the PPTRA around. And I will say that over the, and Commissioner Treasurer can opine on this later, over the 20 or 25 years we've had this, we've been above and below the amount of relief. The state gave us 31.25 million. They don't come and audit us, but we're supposed to provide that much in relief. You probably recall when we went to 88% on the assessments. We've had this very volatile car market, and just in the last 2 years, we've gotten a little more out of whack with the relief being provided. The manager is, in the proposed budget, is recommending pulling back on that.
We can go to slide 17. I think that's the one where we actually have the information on it.
And thank you, colleagues, for
No,
hearing.
this is an important thing that we're focusing on intentionally, so that.
Yep.
Get there. Okay.
Well, it's about 7% of the total of revenue, so it's not.
Yeah, so, and I'm going to ask Danielle to walk you through very specifically on slide 17, what it is that the county taxpayers are foregoing by way, in other words, there's in the tax, we call them tax expenditures. Yep. So why don't you walk through that, Danielle?
Sure. So I'm going to focus on the graph on the left, the bar chart. So this is based on calendar year 25, right? So we get the 31.3 million from the state. We receive that every year. We had given out more tax relief than that. We had given out net tax support of 5.9 to further relieve vehicle tax bills. This year, the manager is proposing to make the allocation changes that we've discussed. That would give us back 1.2 million, meaning that we would only be giving 4.7 million of net tax support funding.
But it's still 4.7 million. That's one way to look at it.
So I think you probably got a second and a third and a couple of head nods to consider if there's a further equitable means for reducing the 4.7 million, such that still we would be seeking the best we can to protect some of those vehicles that are worth, 10,000, 15,000, up to 20,000, depending on what we could do. So that is an open policy question, and I have filibustered enough. Ms. Cunningham, thanks for the question. I think you were passing for this round to Mr. Karantonis.
Yeah, I have one more that can be later.
Are there other pieces on this item? Mr. Spain.
I just want to get some clarity on, so I'll be the third or the fourth when moving forward with this. I just need some clarity on the 31.3 that the state gives us. At what point, Mr. Manager, did we make a decision? Was it a policy decision to grant above the 31.3 historically? I'm just curious, and what drove that?
It's happened naturally with the volatility in the car market.
Sure, okay.
The setting of the rates at this point in time, the timing of the billing of the treasurer's office, where they're billing monthly. They've already, actually, I think she's holding off right now. It's just gotten a little out of kilter with the treasurer will talk about this, the number of clean fuel vehicles, the value of those vehicles, and it's consumption of the relief that we're getting from the state has just put us in this situation, and so we're trying to.
I'm good.
Yeah, you're estimating each year, and then the values change without your full control, even though you have most of the control of the universe.
I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's equivalent to an entitlement on sort of the expenditure side, which is that you set the percentage of relief you're going to get, and that's what we have to administer. And sometimes in certain years, that number is higher than what we get from the state.
And I think the 88% was, at the time, seemed to me, and I don't know if colleagues were on the board at this, seemed reasonable for not having a spike like Prop 13 in California, but I think that it's worth revisiting. So you have that. Mr. Carantonis, to you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the fundamental problem here is that the amount of PPTRA that we are handling here is constant. And not only that, it has been declining over year after year. So the amount that and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is the state providing us every year less PPTRA? No, it's constant throughout years. And that is calculated how? Or allocated?
Set back in 2004 when they wanted to get rid of the car tax, and then Commissioner probably has a lot more history on this when they come up, and it's just remained flat ever since for all localities in the Commonwealth.
Correct, but the value of the cars in between has increased a lot. So therefore, the impact of the delta here of the tax in the mixed calculation of car ownership has been decreasing. Now, the other thing that we have, we have a few dials here. Direct dials is the level of the franchise, so the 3,000 versus 4,000 that you chose. The reason why you propose that is because is the assumption that those who have a lower residual value vehicle, will be more relieved if this is higher, right? And so the board could make a different allocation, say, and I'm not so sure that this is within the scope, but I believe it is. We could say that we could go even higher there. That would just reallocate the rest of PPTRA to the others, right?
Yeah, just one note on that. So we did look at the different buckets, like going up from 3,000 to 4,000, 5,000, et cetera. We found that anything above that 4,000 threshold would just eat up all of the PPTRA funds, meaning there would be no more funds left for that remaining $16,000, $15,000 of assessed vehicle value.
So the next thing.
But Takis, I think it's a question for the county attorney. I do not think where you set that threshold is subject to an advertisement. I think you have discretion as you go through the budget process.
Right.
If, let's say you wanted to make it 4,001, I think you would have that discretion, but you need to check with the county attorney.
So one critical set of data for that is to know more or less how many new vehicles are coming. I mean, this is for the commissioner later. How many vehicles are coming in? What's the average price? There is also what's the average depreciation of these vehicles. For example, brand new electric vehicles have a very much higher depreciation rate right now in the first 2 or 3 years of ownership than the average vehicles. We have seen conventional vehicles or hybrids, for example, having a flattening depreciation rate, even absolute maintenance of their. So that plays a role. The next dial is the dollars per 100 cents, so the actual rate. So, for example, Fairfax has, I looked at this, 4.57, if I'm not mistaken. Their franchise is about 1,000, not 4,000. Prince William's has 3.7, which is very low, but they don't have any franchise that I could find. Alexandria has 5,000, not 5,000, but their rate is 5.3. Or 5.33. So what I would appreciate is kind of the comparative study that you did to have this data so that we can think a little bit about this in a more strategic way. That's a good conversation that we have. Also the conversation about the delta that we want to avoid and to fix. But making car ownership And we have an assumption that car ownership for moderate and lower incomes is even more important. These households have less vehicles per household, and they need them also more. Car ownership has been skyrocketing in cost. So there are even studies that say that it was double digits since in the last 2 or 3 years. So we have to be very judicious about how much we burden here and whether the delta that we finance, to whose benefit it's really accruing. We need to understand that better. This is one of these policy questions that has too many dials and too many things to consider.
One other dial, and you can talk to the commissioner about this, is the approach that she takes to assess vehicles and what methodology she uses, because I think it's better, but it's different than our neighbors.
Thank you.
And finally, on so I would really appreciate if we had this comparison in the regional context here. And the other thing on the utilities, I need more data to understand that. What I'm very much afraid, while I appreciate Ms. Cunningham's approach that, a higher, basically increasing the per kilowatt price or cost, it also burdens those who can least afford to improve who can least adapt and reduce their burden. Yeah, so those who are very wealthy, they can do the right thing. I wish we had a progressive carbon tax and we could do that. But we don't. So, if you are a very wealthy homeowner here and you have a $3 million home, 8,000 square feet, you can do better with a, very efficient a heat pump, etc. Somebody who owns a condo unit like I do will be very unlikely to be able to make a dent there.
And Mr. Karantonis, I think the discussion was around commercial utilities. So if you have another question on residential, we should come back to it another time.
Correct. And commercial doesn't always mean differently. I think that we would burden smaller businesses, etc., with a lot more. But this would be.
Thank you. Fair concerns. We have the comparative request on the car piece, and then we have further thinking that we are going to do and we are going to own as a board on the utilities piece. I think we're getting close, I believe, from just sort of checking with colleagues on both sides to closing comments. And I'll give, you ready, Mr. Spain? Oh, Ms. Coffey.
Great, thank you. I know we did a lot more work on the revenue end this year than we typically would, and I really do appreciate it. I think before we close, it just deserves to be highlighted, the drastic change to the state and federal contributions to our budget, and I think that matters in particular right now because we are so hyper-locally impacted by events beyond our control. And the Fairfax Board of Supervisors commissioned a Weldon Cooper study earlier this year that talked about kind of the rate of revenue return for Northern Virginia localities that showed, Fairfax is certainly paying more into our state general fund than they are getting back, which was, I think, the purpose of the board's commissioning that study. But they used Arlington as a comparator, and Arlington is paying even higher of a proportion into the general fund than we are receiving back, which during normal times, I think we all can agree is a necessary good. We want our schools elsewhere in the Commonwealth to be strong. We want our roads and highways to be paved and without potholes and all of those things. And at the same time, I do think, yes, thank you for pulling the slide up. I do think that it is really critical to just express, right, going from 16% of our budget from our other government supporting us down to only 7%. It really does start to feel like we are left kind of hanging out to dry here at this moment, where what's happening across the river, what's happening with our federal administration and federal contracts, and our own workers who are being, fired or terrorized, basically. And we want to do the right thing by our residents and by our community. And without any external support, I don't think any of us are under any illusion that the federal government is going to jump in to support Arlington County. But I would like to believe that the Commonwealth of Virginia has some desire to make sure that our people, who are their people as well, and who are paying massively into the Commonwealth's general fund, have some degree of care right now. And so I think it's worth highlighting. I think, the Virginia income tax highest tax bracket is only like $20,000, which is ridiculous. If our local taxing authority is from the House of Burgesses, I think the Commonwealth's is, frankly, as well. And it really does deserve a bigger, more comprehensive look. And if Richmond isn't interested in giving higher income tax rates, even if it is for people earning $1 million or more, letting us have some degree of local authority to do it. They may not have the courage to implement something that progressive, but surely here in Arlington we do. And it may be the only way in the long term. I mean, we have to find solutions in the short term, but in the long term, perhaps the only option for weathering storms like this is getting some structural change from Richmond. And I think it deserves to be talked about. I think we are paying more and more for the Commonwealth on the comp board employees, the fact that we plus up all of our constitutionals, which is the right thing to do, but it's costing us more and more each year because the Commonwealth is abdicating their responsibility and expecting us to fill in the gaps. And we are doing the right thing by filling in those gaps, but for how long is it our responsibility alone to keep doing that? And can we even keep doing that when we are so deeply impacted by the events going on around us? And so I think this slide up here, slide 10, really highlights just the structural problems that we have here. And I appreciate all the deep work that went into this. And the last thing I will highlight is a bill did pass in Richmond, and we have our legislative person here, around studying the full repeal of the car tax and what that looks like and how that impacts us. And so I just highlight that as we talk about the personal property tax relief program, we all should be paying attention to that study.
If I could just add one thing, as bonus pages in the budget this year and the manager's message, there's a couple of pages, and I want to be clear, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but Arlington County taxpayers are spending somewhere close to $75 million in each budget, and the board is approving that to supplement pay and benefits and other types of things for our state constitutional officers and their employees. That's, yeah, there's a few pages in the budget where we talk about that. I'm talking about direct expenditures when it comes to salaries and benefits, and I'm not even talking about the additional assistance they receive from our other departments, which we can talk about separately, but that I just thought that was appropriate since you mentioned it.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey and Mr. Schwartz. Mr. Spain.
Yes, these will be my closing comments, and I'm just going to pick up on what our vice chair talked about. If we can go to slide 32 and pull that up, because this is worth repeating again, but I'm not going to keep going. There's some hardcore realities, right? I think when we start talking about, the federal funding risks, understanding how much we pay versus what other jurisdictions are doing and what we're putting into Richmond, there's a slide in here where we talk about local resilience, right? And I think for us here, and looking at places like Loudoun or Fairfax and what they pay or what they're going to pay and charge their citizens this year can be a bit misleading, simply because their revenue streams are a whole lot different than here in Arlington. So that compare and contrast is not always what it may seem. And I think, the challenge for us is, making good with what we already have, but also how do we advocate down into Richmond, right, to say, hey, look, you've only been given X amount of dollars to us or localities for a number of years. We need to boost this up, right? And I think that's another angle that perhaps needs to be taken on, because it sounds as though it's been a trend longer than I've been here on the board. And I think that's where perhaps we need to go. But I just want to thank you as I close my few comments in this segment for a very thorough presentation. I think for most folks in Arlington, we hear this drumbeat every time, the effects of federal funding, the effects of government. This slide tells it all, right? That's the reality. The question becomes, how do we navigate and don't be so reliable on the stream of federal income in this moment and in the future, and making those hard decisions as a team and as a government, because that's the reality, right? Federal money, we may even lose more. So it's unfortunate, but I just want to thank you on a very thorough presentation. This concludes my questions, Mr. Chair, for this segment of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Ms. Cunningham.
I was also going to make the point that Ms. Coffey made, and I think it's just a really important piece that, our return on investment for the money we send to Richmond is 35 cents on the dollar, which is worse than some of the casino games you might do just for fun. So again, we have been and will continue to be team players, but we need a little help here. Our people are struggling, and the federal government's not helping, and we need a better return on investment from Richmond. We also need to have the local control to be able to make good decisions, which Arlington has a very strong history of doing, whether it's in land use or in balancing tax and revenue issues. So I think we will continue to have conversations, but the winds have shifted a bit in Richmond. Unfortunately, at the same time that they've shifted a different way here, and we can't keep going on this way, or we will have to increase taxes all the time, and that's really has an end game that's not positive. So this year brings it into focus, and I really appreciate the work you guys have done to show us that the constitutional conversation we will continue throughout. Schools is the same issue, where we're getting unfunded mandates constantly, and there's a natural limiter to that. Two other quick ones. I know we talk about the residential commercial split and how 50-50 used to be the ideal. Could we do that analysis with the three-way split of residential, commercial apartment, and commercial office? I know that, I think you have the numbers, but across time, I think it was never 50-50, kind of residents plus apartments. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I should be able to add those up and figure out the answer.
8%.
Got it. So even, I guess I was even wanting to go back further, right? So even in 1960s, we had a ton of renters, and the value of those apartments contributed to the whole. And I think that 50-50 metric, it's that, but going back, a lot farther. Yeah, a lot farther. So never, while the red line has been above 50 at various times or below 50 at various times, the red line plus the yellow line, I would hypothesize, has stayed well above 50 across many, many, many years. So when we say residential versus commercial, we're still untangling that commercial has the two.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Okay. And I think I had one more, but lucky for you, I can't find it. So we will hit it in some other time.
We'll give you the full opportunity to follow up at a later time. Mr. Carantonis.
Just very briefly, so it's always good to talk about the revenue environment. I would add to what my colleagues have already referred to. There is also a fundamental economic shift here. There are, since the pandemic, we know that there are more forces in play here. We have seen movement, the change of the workplace. We have remote work. Now we have work that is boosted by AI, fewer people occupying fewer space, but at the same time being extremely productive. Sure. There are even There are a few phenomena that I still need to digest. For example, we have a higher volatility in our residential market right now. We have more, residential sales. You already said that the recordation tax will go up, which basically tells us that there are more transactions happening. We are the only jurisdiction in our neighborhood where the average price is actually going up, which is an interesting phenomenon to me. I mean, this was part of the data from the Brookings Observatory. Now, it is very clear that the Commonwealth is getting away here with a lot of unfunded mandates, with a lot of lowering contribution. It's the construction of the way the Commonwealth funds things that doesn't benefit jurisdictions that have a higher, where the cost of living is going up, so the requirements for salaries, et cetera, are going up accordingly. So having the Commonwealth understand this diversity of economic regions is extremely important. My colleagues are very familiar with that. We started with teaching the Commonwealth to do that in transportation. We'll have to teach them to do that in other things as well. I do believe that we need to see also how our expenditures are structured in this budget process, because this will give us a better idea of how we look at our revenues as well. I mean, the cost of our school system and the cost of general governance. This is why I asked at the very beginning. We have a persistently, diverging dynamics from our general cost of governance is increasing at a steady pace. Our revenues are lagging in the dynamic adjustment to that. That's something we need to answer locally before we begin to answer it regionally, and then especially at the state level. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. I'll flag a couple of questions that I will follow up afterwards in the interest of time. One is skill games is identified, I believe, on page 56, and I think that's a placeholder for what may occur legislatively. There's also, I'll be interested if someone can help educate me, and maybe it's Ms. Coffey and Mr. Esty, about cannabis and whether that's a source of revenue that's out there for us. I would say in the short term, it's also legislative in the sense that, and I'll take coaching, but I did have a conversation yesterday, and we've got a House and Senate bill on Metro, and seeing things positively in how they can help us to drive the economy for the whole Commonwealth is the short-term answer, I believe, to some of the issues that have been raised. So those are really I'll have the only other closing hope that I'll have is I could probably use some education on the transportation planning and construction side of the federal funding risks. Even with $99 million, I do think that our risk on the federal side has been decreased. Department of Homeland Security is the one appropriations bill that isn't funded. So I may just follow up with all those pieces. We do need to take a quick break. Mindful that I said no earlier than 2:30 to the Commissioner of Revenue. We do have a separate issue that I believe Ms. Coffey needs to check individually and separately with colleagues on. And so we will be adjourned right now. By my count, it is 2:38. We are on or even slightly ahead of schedule. We will start again precisely at 2:50. And if folks want to be here before then, I'll certainly take it. But 2:50 for a quick break to answer Ms. Coffey's questions, and changing of the guard, and we'll be ready then. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We'll start in 2 or 3 minutes. 2 minutes. Mm-hmm.
Michelle. Allison and Kim, just do one more. And you sort it out. 1, 2, perfect. You're not in the picture. Is that okay?
Are you now an influencer?
I thought you deserved a break today.
No, I was, you know why?
This presentation is with our Commissioner of Revenue, and I think we've showed due respect to Mr. Schwartz, who's been moved to the corner, but against his will. But we are respecting him while sending it to Ms. Klingler for your presentation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Chair DeFerrante. Thank you, County Board members. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to note that I do have a few team members at the table with me. I have Allison Chen, my Chief Deputy, Andres Lazares, my Deputy of Business, Michelle Neves, my Deputy of Vehicle Personal Property, and close but not too far away, my Deputy Bill Burgess of Legal Counsel. So please welcome them as well. I want to thank you for the earlier presentation with Revenue, Department of Management and Finance, with Danielle and Richard for teeing up some great questions. So hopefully throughout my presentation, we will answer most of them. If I do not, please flag it and we'll set the 3-minute timer and make sure it is answered. So without further ado, next slide, please. Oh, one more slide. Is it coming?
Sorry.
All right, here we go. So early on in my tenure, we did go through an exercise of strategic planning. Just want to bring this back to your attention, where we focused on our vision, mission, and our core values. And our mission is to assess business and personal property taxes uniformly, impartially, and efficiently, serving the needs of our collective community. Next slide, please. As a reminder, I always like to state the responsibilities of the Commissioner of Revenue, which is a constitutional office. We, the Commissioner of Revenue, we assess, and the Treasurer, my colleague over here, collects. A few things on this. This allows for checks and balances. We also assess personal property. The exception is real estate. We do not assess real estate. We are the point of entry for all businesses here in Arlington, and we administer the business license and taxes that Danielle mentioned. We had a due date on March 1st. We also operate a DMV Select, which we are growing in our numbers of the customers that we serve on a daily basis. We also provide taxpayer assistance for state income tax. We do have folks who do come to our counters who makes appointments who do want that assistance. We are looking to partner with the library and others in the future, but that is one of the services we provide. And we do partner with many, many organizations. So if you look at the teal box on the right-hand side, these are just a sampling of some of our partners, and you all fit in that box. So thank you. Thank you for your partnership. Next slide, please. So next up, last year, I know, I brought you 365 accomplishments in 365 days. For your benefit and for everyone's, we have knocked it down to our top 10. I do have a hard copy if you want to pass those down. Now, all of these are important to us because they are what make us successful. They are what make our community and our county successful. But I'm going to just focus on 3, number 6, number 5, and number 1. So number 6, enhanced customer feedback and engagement. We expanded our web-based messaging using CAP, and we also added CAP transaction surveys, where Michelle and myself presented at an international conference regarding this functionality. And I want to thank Michelle and her team for going through the process with DTS, thank you DTS, and bringing this functionality to our community. Number 5, we implemented the updated county meals tax ordinance. Although maybe not the most popular, this was a really good opportunity for us to get out in front of the community and to educate them on what does the meals tax mean, what does it apply to, what does it not apply to. And I do want to thank you all. I also want to thank the CAPE team for your partnership in that endeavor. And then number 1, strengthening our business audits. This is huge. We executed the, hold on, here it comes, Revenue Enforcement Compliance and Payment Recap Plan, along with the county, by hiring 2 auditors and launching an expedited audit program, increasing audit assessments by 40% and exceeding our 1.5 million goal, kind of crushing the goal. So I do want to thank Andres and his business team for this success to be able to support the county. Next slide, please. I always like to do this reminder slide. We assess the Commissioner of Revenue 24% of the county's budget. Our expenses are 0.4% of that budget. So we do have a great return on investment. My days back at Deloitte taught me that, so we're trying to apply it here as well. Next slide, please. Outcomes and measures. I do want to thank you last year for supporting us in these return on investment journeys and endeavors, as I mentioned. We were able to fill the new position of Tax Auditor 4. We were also able to reclassify and create the Deputy of Technology and Quality Assurance. Anil, can you wave? Anil's our new Deputy of Technology and Quality Assurance. He has a big job to do, but he's already right now just jumping in and helping us. So with these types of things, we were able to increase our total audits, in addition with our Discovery tool, which is a technology module, which is an add-on to ACE, which DTS helped us install and make sure it's moving forward with our audits. And then this year, we've really focused in on legislation because we want to be proactive, but we are still in a reactive state. Why are we reactive? Last year, HB, House Bill 1743, was introduced. This bill passed the House, and the Senate sent it to a committee to study. We were on that work group with Virginia Tax. What this bill would have done was give additional out-of-state deductions to large corporations. In Arlington, if I were to take the top 4 corporations and apply this bill, we would have lost $4.6 million annually. At the state level, the Commonwealth level, it would have been $60 million. So lo and behold, we were actually prepared this year when it came back, resurrected as House Bill 956. We were able to get in front of it with the help of VACO, VML, and Corva. I was able to testify in front of the subcommittee, and I'm not supposed to say this, but we killed the bill. I'm sorry. We kept it from going out of subcommittee. But it will be back. And these are things that Maureen talked about as getting in front of our tax and our legislative policy. There is another bill out there right now, House Bill 960. It did pass the House. The Senate asked for it to be reenacted in 2027. This bill would allow, it's for business tangible, business personal property, but it would diminish our business tangible revenues if it were to go in enactment. It also could allow a company to pretty much sell their equipment for $1 and then buy it back, and then they're only going to be assessed on that $1. So I have a whole chart to show you this, but that's the generalities. If you would like later, we can also talk about skill games and cannabis, but I'm going to leave that for later, okay? Next slide, please. So as Danielle mentioned, March 1, technically March 2nd, because it fell, March 1 fell on a Sunday, was our due date for B-poll. And as you can see, our assessments and our throughput have been increasing through the great work of Andres and our team. We are on target to meet the budget expectations that we have talked to with Danielle and Richard, but we still have time. We still have time to do statutory assessments, to also have more folks come on in. So let us know if you have any questions on that, but it does look good. It looks promising. Next slide, please. So in FY 2027, we're going to continue to focus on the following things. One is automation and process improvement. There is so much opportunity here, and technology will support us throughout this. Number 2, enhanced customer service. You'll see here on the right-hand side, this is a screenshot of our new webpage. Dun, dun, dun. It was actually launched on Friday, February 28th, along with other pages, which are both ADA and 508 compliant. We're really proud of this work, and we have more to do. And then number 3, office professionalism. One thing we want to mention here is that we are partnering with you and to be able to join the Northern Virginia Cigarette Tax Board. This will allow us to align with our neighboring jurisdictions and increase efficiencies and compliance. And it would also prepare us in the future if and when Richmond would allow us to tax vaping, e-cigarettes, or liquid tobacco. So we are preparing for that. However, it failed in subcommittee this year, but maybe something in the future. Next slide, please. As I mentioned previously, we definitely continue to maintain a focus on equity. Although we are moving to electronic transactions as much as possible, we always have that ability to use paper for those who need it. As you saw with our website, moving to ADA and 508 compliance, we're continuing to expand our language offerings, and that's something I do want to work on continuously through the future, and develop our team members and our bench strength so we can better serve our community. Next slide. So proposed summary of changes. As I mentioned, we have really been able to enhance our efficiencies and our automation. Because of this, we are looking at taking 1 FTE, an admin FTE, and making it a 0.5, a part-time. Of course, that doesn't necessarily move the needle because the increase of benefit costs, but we're trying to stay flat. We also want to thank you for partnering with us. I believe it was advertised your last county board meeting on the out-of-state license plate ordinance change. This could potentially bring us $250,000 to $500,000 more, and it also aligns us, like I mentioned, with our fellow jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So moving forward, things that we must consider, continue to think about, keep on the radar. As Allison and Anil and the rest of the team and the treasurer and everyone can attest to, DTS support is mission critical. We need to be able to keep our systems up and running efficiently and effectively. Also, Andres and Bill have been tracking the Tourism Improvement District. I believe that legislation has passed the House and the Senate in Richmond, so that means it is something that we could potentially execute here. And that's going to take full partnership with you all, with the CAPE team, with AED, with DTS to execute it, because it will take process change, software change, resources, et cetera. And then finally, we talked about it previously, PPTR, the rate change and threshold. Michelle has been tracking that very closely. She's been working with Daniel and Richard. There's certain ways we can slice and dice it, but again, those do require system changes, process changes, and of course, as you all mentioned, education and informing the public and engaging them. And that is all I have for my formal presentation. Thank you so much, and happy to take questions.
Ms. Klingler suggested she would fit within 15 minutes, and she is definitely done that.
What'd I
by-
do?
By 3 minutes at least, 12 minutes. So is what I count.
Congratulations.
So really appreciate it and appreciate you covering so much and really helping with key details in the presentation as a whole. I have one question.
Please.
And I don't want to put you in a tricky spot, but the two positions we authorized, if you are going to come ahead of revenue, is there any more room there to tighten our business audits such that we might, if the revenue exceeds the investment, is there room there? And I'm not committed to this, I'm just asking the question. If we exceed revenue from the two positions that we authorized last year, can you speak at all to whether there is additional tightening that we strategically could want to do that would be net revenue positive this year? And I'm just mindful that we're so tight on revenues.
So just to clarify, you're talking about potentially bringing in an additional auditor to enhance our return on investment.
Yes, only if your Deloitte, your return on investment test is met.
Understood, understood. That's something Andres and Alice and I have been discussing. I do think there is room for that. I don't know if this is the year. We might need one more year to get our footing. But it is something we are definitely open to because we do see an ROI, maybe not this year, but definitely in the future.
Great. Well, I always feel as though staggering the years in which you bring in, when an organization asks for 4 employees at the same time, I was like, why don't we start with 1 or 2 and then move beyond that? And it's great to see the success. You'll still have to get to the end of the year to realize the full success. That was my only initial question. I may have others, but I'll yield to colleagues to see if they have questions. You do not have to make them up, but you certainly may. Mr. Spain.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
Well, I do have, I think it's going to be one question, but before that, let me say this, Madam Commissioner. I've been knowing you for a number of years. You're definitely a Deloitter, but the work you've done in the 14 months that I've been here have been nothing short of extraordinary. Many of us, we see you and your team and your engagement out in the community, something I have not personally witnessed in this community for a while. So hats off to you on that. And I definitely appreciate what you're saying about outcomes and how you measure that in the future. When you go back on HB 956, which you quoted, kind of killed, congratulations. You say this may come back again, and so how are we preparing for war in time of peace, right? What is driving this? Because just curious to know on my end.
So there's a lot of rumors afoot. I do think what needs to happen is the B-Poll guidelines haven't been updated since 2000. And I think what would really help us and other jurisdictions that where this may be more of a problem is that we work with Virginia Tax, with the Commissioner of Revenue Association and other parties and update the B-Poll guidelines. So we have started into that process. We'll see where it goes, but I would like to make sure we start that process before the next legislative cycle, because I think something like this will hit again.
Okay. And as we finish up, are we going to this next fiscal year? If there was one thing, one issue, and I see what you have for budget considerations, but what keeps you up at night?
Technology.
Technology.
Our partners in DTS need to be supported. They need to be strong.
I wholeheartedly agree. Lastly, let me give a shout out. It was several weeks ago, and I was late to get my tax, renewed. So, of course, it was like 3:59, and I ran upstairs, and actually it ended up being like 4 o'clock on the dot. And you have some amazing folks running the DMV Select team, so shout out to them because
Please thank Michelle and her team.
there you go. Yeah, I don't know who came. They helped me out. But I didn't see it in your data here. How many Arlingtonians or people you're servicing upstairs per annum?
At DMV Select, we do have the number. Do you have the?
Do you have the number? Something? Maybe. I just haven't picked up on it.
We have it.
I'd be curious because I always see people there. I know it's quite a bit. But thank you for your support. Thank you for your services, and that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Ms. Coffey.
Yeah, I have a vague recollection last year, we were talking about a license plate reader pilot enforcement situation, but I noticed not in the slides. Is there any information to share or updates on what happened with the pilot?
Absolutely. We can resend slides, but
Great.
the pilot is ongoing.
Okay.
It is growing. I don't know if there's anything you want to speak to regarding the pilot.
No, it is ongoing, but nothing further. Oh, yes, I forgot about that. No, nothing further. It's ongoing.
Okay, I wasn't sure if maybe we had ended it or shifted because there was just, last year I think you talked a lot about setting it up, and so I was like, oh, is there no update?
Thank you for remembering. Appreciate it. No, it has been. It was really a pilot. It is ongoing now. It's going well. We do have we get in front of the civic associations ahead of time. A lot of times we'll present after we do the readings. And I will tell you, after we do the civic association meetings, the number of anonymous tips we get just skyrockets. So we'll make sure we get you the data again, but we are proud of it. It is going well. And I guess, thank you for recalling it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And then one more kind of complicated question. I think the odds look good for cannabis legalization in the General Assembly, at least at this moment. We all know things change on a dime down there, but how easy or not is it for us to incorporate that into our revenue collection process? Obviously, we already tax cigarette sales and have processes for those vendors. Is it a simple kind of additive process, or how much am I underestimating, I guess, on the initial front end?
I do think a lot of it is actually going to happen at the state level. Bill, do you want to speak real quick? Come to my mic. Come to the mic.
We've got an extra.
We should have had you at the table by himself.
I know. Okay, great. Thank you. I'm too tall to do that. Yeah, there are two pieces. There'll be business licenses for all those new businesses. That is simply part of our existing process.
Okay.
Then there's a new local tax authorized at 1% to 3% that would be administered by the state. And so on our side, it would also be seamless.
Okay, so it would be, even if we do enact, I know that the current legislation has a range, like you said, 1% to 3%, we would have to adopt an ordinance with some number in between there, or at the maximum perhaps. But the actual percentage would be collected by the Commonwealth and then remitted back to.
Like the sales tax, yes.
Interesting, okay, great.
That's our understanding currently.
Yes, and anything can change. But thank you, I think that's really helpful.
Question.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is a great question. I'll just take we don't count on it until it passes, but Mr. Schwartz, is DMF ready to see that this ship comes in for us?
They are, and they're prepared for any eventuality, including whether the proposal goes up in smoke.
Well said. Let me just guess. We will know probably, I forget the signing period, but we'll know by April 10th whether this is likely?
Yeah, so one of the challenges we always have in putting together a budget, and it's especially true this year, is we don't know what the state is going to do. But for the last 2 years, that hasn't really been a problem because they weren't going to do anything good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll have that. We're going to try when we come to you at the end of this month with an update on revenues in mid-year to see if we can incorporate those. But as of right now, we're paying attention.
I would just also say that with the way it's proposed, there is a licensing period and there is like a lot of steps and build up such that I think any expectations for fiscal 27, even if it is technically legal by that point, are probably premature. And it you know, at best, the second half of the year, we may have some things to look at that can help us perhaps inform fiscal 28 to have more real expectations of what those numbers look like.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. I will not be accused of irrational exuberance that is successful, but I do really appreciate that. Thank you for the understanding of that. And on to colleagues, Ms. Cunningham.
I would just say to translate our chair's question earlier is you were right. several of us were right. So thank you for being right last year about the importance of bringing on additional revenue staff. And I think it's been my experience, and not just because I had a little time at IRS, but that, you know, the dollars you spend making the playing field level and assessing properly really pay off, both for revenue collection, which is great, but also for society and for trust and for a government and community that are working well together. So thank you to your team and also to all of those folks and businesses who, even in hard times, are meeting their obligations to support our county, and I guess maybe even the state to some extent, adding the cannabis. I should put as a footnote that they are trying, they are helping. So mostly I just want to lift that up and say thank you. The work you guys are doing on automation, on kind of efficiencies, on looking at that as well as investing is just really inspiring. And so thank you for doing that. And I hope that we can take any lessons you're learning there and provide them across other departments. I think we talked last year a little bit about call center optimization, but I think we all have common challenges and opportunities about how best to very efficiently meet consumers and customers where they are, and to get their questions answered and get them through with as low burden as possible. So thank you for that. I'll leave you with one other question, which is on some of our taxes, both business tangible and maybe BPOL. Like, we go pretty deep into the smallest of the small businesses. Can you say anything about like the cost to manage that, both for you and the burden for the taxpayer versus the revenue we're collecting, and how you're thinking about that, whether we can help in some fashion?
Do you want to talk about that at all?
Certainly. All right. Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. So if I understood the question, it's the cost benefit to managing people and business tangible. Well, we've kept our business inspector team at around 7 FTEs, 6.5 this last fiscal year, and managed to assess year over year 8% more in BPOL and 5% more in BTN. And we do that by being mindful of the taxpayer. Is the juice sometimes worth the squeeze when we're assessing, thousands and thousands of assessments year over year? But we try to leverage our technology as much as we can. We implemented discovery module in our tax system, which not just 1x or 2x's are in business inspector work, but 10x is that. And we just implemented that last fiscal year. So we hope to really reap the rewards this upcoming fiscal year. And that's a good question. I think it's something we're always mindful about. The burden on the taxpayer. We certainly get feedback, and we read every email, listen to every call. So we're very mindful. We have conversations probably ad nauseum about how we can improve the customer experience, whether it's on the phone, email, or at the counter. So we really try to leverage our technology to make it as painless as possible for our taxpayers to remain compliant.
We see other jurisdictions who really go into the nitty-gritty. I mean, they will assess this pen right here. And one of the things that we have been talking to your legislative liaison about is potentially in the future getting into business tangible within the legislation, a minimum threshold for business tangible. So we're not going into the nitty-gritty for those small things that really don't add up in the end.
Great, and that's a legislative fix, so we'll keep it on the list. I do think it's both your time and it is annoying to pay, and in fact, it's impossible sometimes to pay on the pen because you can't pay less than $10, as I know. So something to look at, because everyone's time, and especially staff time, is really important so that we just are as efficient as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham, for the question. Certainly one that I've been aware of, and glad that we'll continue to monitor and be ready to follow up. Mr. Karantonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Commissioner, you missed to cite the most important part of your vision mission statement, which is part of your vision.
Yes.
And not of your mission. We strive to redefine the tax experience by make it more transparent, efficient, and accessible. So
thank you.
I don't know what motivated this to be part of the vision, and not part of the mission, but it is worth underlining that. So I have a couple of questions that come. They are very similar to the discussion about the license plate readers, et cetera, because I understood that this is part of the entire deployment of discovery tools, right? One is the part of that. So the based on the feedback that I got from small businesses, because we had also a lot of interactions during the meals tax increase, et cetera, there was kind of a discussion about, okay, what exactly, how exactly are our data leveraged? How do we protect our, the data of our business? As you can imagine, business have also employees. There's a lot that can be read by unauthorized people from this data. Whether a business has 15 or 17 employees, for example, it makes a difference, et cetera. So can you give me an idea how you protect this data, including license plate reader data, et cetera? They are pretty much scrutinized right now.
So let's start with license plate readers. Last year when we were down at the General Assembly, of course, we weren't able to go this year because of Snowcrete, but last year we did have some conversations with the ACLU. And it's really important to us that we use the data only for us. It does not go to anyone else. After it is read, we keep it for 24 to 48 hours, as long as we need it for that period of time. If there does need to be a case, then that license plate will go with the case within our system. But again, everything is protected by DTS, and it is not shared with anyone from the license plate reader perspective. Does that answer your question about that one?
It does. I mean, at least in your field, because of course, right now we're experiencing a lot of transgressions on how data are accessed.
It comes
with
to our
different
office,
vendors,
it stays
et
in
cetera.
our office.
Right.
It does not go to any other entities. Go ahead.
Does this experience with license plate readers inform the proposal? That's a question to the manager as well, to increase the fee for out of state, the penalty for out of state tags to $250.
So, do you want to take that? Oh, I got it. So it does align with other jurisdictions. What we do see out there is informing this, of course. And that's how we get our numbers, about $250,000 to $500,000 more in revenue. It also hopefully will get more people into compliance, because $100 versus $100 plus $250.
Yeah.
That is our mindset right now.
So the insight is that there is relatively, not massive, but a lot of non-compliance or nonchalance about
It's always
this.
hard to know who's non-compliant, right? But I will tell you, budget item, I would love to get a license plate reader for my dog. Because if we can get a small enough one, because I'm always walking my dog, and that's
Can't
where
you just teach Coco to, I mean, does it need to be technology?
Oh, I don't know if she'd be that good. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe that besides the ACLU, you will have to talk to the AWLA.
Oh, that's a good point. They may not like that. And I will tell you, some of the, yes, who is it? Some of the animal groups may not like it
cyber dogs
either.
on our streets. So we don't want to be surveilling. We want to have compliance, right? We want to change the experience, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Sorry about my joke.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I'm ready for the cost for the line item.
You guys are so lucky we're ahead of schedule. I can't.
250, with other words, so that I understand it correctly, 250 is in line with what is, the regional average or the regional
Yes,
comparable?
we'll go ahead and resend you the slide, but yes, it puts us in line with the other parties within our area.
Awesome. One thing that I honestly don't know exactly. So when we get to the point to have the new the hotel improvement district or the
TID?
TID.
Yeah.
What is exactly the role of the Commissioner of Revenue? There will be a fee this is not a real estate fee. This is some sort of a different fee. Can you elaborate a little bit how this fee is envisioned
I'm
to
gonna let
be
Andres take that one.
determined?
Certainly. So the design of this program was designed by our Arlington Economic Development. However, our role in this would be the custodian of the dollars that are paid into by the hotels. The hoteliers will pay into this fund. We'll be the custodian of it, collect it, make sure that it's remitted monthly, and then we'll distribute that back to whichever fund they identify for us.
I'm mentioning that because the analogon that we have is from the business improvement districts. But there, the fee is a real estate fee, is a rider on the real estate tax rate.
Correct.
So here, this is a different fee. So you do that, but you will be dispersing and managing that the same way the treasurer does that. No.
Sorry.
Oh.
Yes. Let me be specific. We'll just be assessing the fee to each hotel. As we have the listings of the hotels in the county, we'll be assessing the fee in which they'll pay to the treasurer.
But we will have to advertise a fee and then, legalize this, and then you collect this, and okay. And I semi-understand
See
that.
a future session on this.
Yes.
Yes, I think this is a little bit more complex. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Each board member has said in different ways, thank you to the whole team. You guys are in the community. You're doing more on LinkedIn than I've ever dreamed about, but you're also engaging, and I know that takes effort, and really just appreciate you, your leadership. Ms. Commish, Dish with the commissioner, but all of those different pieces, not just a thank you to you, but to thank you to the whole team for your service and leadership of the office. That's all I have. That's all I think we have. I'm grateful for the time this afternoon.
Thank you so much for your support. Greatly appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely.
Mr. Chair, can I ask one question?
Oh, sorry.
One additional?
Go
No,
ahead.
it's okay. It's actually maybe just as much for the manager as for the commissioner, but I think you started your presentation with, you do the assessment of all of the taxes except for real estate. Could you give us a little bit of history and thought about, I think different jurisdictions do it differently, whether they have a commissioner, whether it's under the commissioner, whether it's in the staff. Can you talk about where we are today and why, and whether there's any interest or opportunity for movement?
When the commissioner's predecessor was in office, almost every year she came up with a proposal to move the assessment function, which is currently under a separately authorized department in the Department of Management and Finance, the Department of Real Estate Assessment, under the commissioner's office. And we have, I think, a whole series of material that we'll re-forward to the board talking about some of the reasons why we didn't think that was necessary to move that. And we'll be happy to share that with you again.
That would be great. Yeah, and if I'm sure that they exist already, and maybe I've even read them, but I don't remember them. But the difference between commercial and residential, does everyone do all of them together because it's the same tax rate anyway, or do some localities have that assessment in different places? Does that make sense? So okay, thank you for your honesty. If you were to move any part of the real estate assessment, would you ever consider moving just commercial, or does it always move in one bucket?
The short answer is no, but we can give you some follow-up on that.
Thank you.
And just for a quick note, not that this is always something I want to learn more about. I will tell you, fellow commissioners in Loudoun and Fauquier and Loudoun recently had real estate transferred back to the Commissioner of Revenue's office. Not to say that's something we should be doing or considering, but it is something I'm learning more about and researching and investigating.
Super, thank you.
Thank you for asking the question, Ms. Cunningham, and for the dialogue on it. I think it's great that you're seeking to understand a little more than immediately saying must switch, and we can work more on it over time. Certainly open to that conversation for myself. Now we will have a changing of the guard, and just a thank you to each of you again for the presentation this afternoon.
Thank you.
Yep. We are ready. We're just trying to give a little bit of context to the treasurer team while thanking the Commissioner of Revenue's team. We will actually not do a break. We'll just let you guys come on over to the table. We'll keep Mr. Schwartz in the corner for now. And appreciate and look forward to the presentation. When you are all set.
I know the history of that.
Oh, excellent.
Turn your mic on if you want to share.
History as I know it is that when Arlington went to once-a-year assessments for real estate, the then Commissioner of Revenue, and I have no idea who it was, said, no, if you're not going to give me more staff, I'm not going to do it. And that was the beginning of how it got moved to the county.
Because it used to be less than once a year, like every 5 years
I
or something.
think, yeah, it's 4 to 6 years, and it still is in some jurisdictions.
It is, and it's crazy.
Well,
Can you
but
imagine?
if the values don't change that much.
Yeah.
We have a former IRS staff person who's sharing, and appreciate that context. I had not known it. When you're ready, it's to you, our treasurer, Ms. De La Pava.
There are proposals with AI to do the reassessments every minute.
Got it.
So, good afternoon.
Sure. Thank you for coming.
Chair DeFerranti and members of the board and Mr. Schwartz. I would like to mention that my Kim Rucker, to my right, will also be helping me with this presentation. She is my new chief deputy. She started with me in August.
Great.
She looks a lot like your old chief deputy. It's really amazing.
There's a look.
There's a look.
Got it.
And to her right is Linda Bross, who is our assistant deputy for administration. As mandated by the Constitution and the Code of Virginia, my mission as treasurer of Arlington County is to build, receive, collect, safeguard, and yes, Taki, disperse county funds. In my office, fiscal 2026 has been a year of innovation. We focused on 2 main areas. First, improving our internal tools and processes to work more efficiently. And secondly, enhancing our customers' experience by providing an expanded range of services that give our taxpayers more tools, a minimum of $35,000 in maintenance costs just this year alone. Because the new system is fully integrated with our tax system, it saves staff time, it makes training easier, it processes payments real time, and we can take advanced payment methods now like tap to pay. We have been trying to get tap to pay for at least 10 years now. It's also supported by an on-site tech team, which means that updates are now easier. And when we occasionally have urgent issues, they are right here on site to help us, and that has happened already. So that's been a huge boon for us. You also helped us in budget support last year with an update to our tax systems collection module, and that utilizes our existing historical data to adjust workflows and automate steps in the collection process. These improvements allow staff to focus on critical research and customer outreach. And in fact, in the first 2 months following the upgrade, staff was able to work 15% more new accounts than in the same period last year. And as they gain familiarity with these tools, we expect to see even greater improvements as we go along. Now, turning our focus to customer service enhancements. Last year, we added 2 QR codes to the delinquent notice. One, the customer could scan to pay in full, and the other, you could sign up for a payment plan. In the first 2 weeks after sending these notices, we received $3.1 million in 3 weeks, a 45% increase over the prior year for those 2 weeks. The payment plan link was also a resounding success. In the past, and I think I've said this to you before, but they had to contact us or we had to contact them to do a payment plan. With over 20,000 delinquent accounts, that slowed the process down. Accessible payment plans means an earlier start. And an earlier start means lower monthly payments. And therefore, that means more success in plan completions. And the results have surpassed even our expectations. This chart shows that last year we had 433 delinquent payment plans in all of FY25. At this point last year, we had 218 customers on payment plans. This year, over 1,200 payment plans have already been established for a total of $1.6 million in scheduled tax payments. And as a side note, our self-service payment plans were particularly helpful to furloughed employees. I know Fairfax extended their due date on the due date, but since no one knew how long that furlough was going to last, and it lasted more than 30 days, many people appreciated the flexibility of that 6-month payment plan. So, in sum, the support you gave us in FY 2026 positioned us to collect over $1 million more in delinquent personal property taxes so far this year.
Another customer service innovation we've rolled out is a monthly automatic bank debit option for vehicle taxes. At a time when taxpayers are confronting car tax bills that have more than doubled in the last 10 years, monthly ABD is one way to ease that burden. Since introducing this program 2 weeks ago, an average of 50 people a day have enrolled for a total of over $450,000 in taxes that will be fully paid on the due date. Because car taxes are getting so expensive, a number of constituents would ask us to follow other jurisdictions and allow 2 installments for car taxes. The great thing about this program is next year they'll have up to 12 monthly installments to pay. This year it's 8 based on when we launched the program. But as you can see on this chart, whether your bill is $2,000 or even $250, anyone can benefit from smaller, more manageable tax payments. We are confident that this program will also reduce car tax delinquencies because taxpayers with a TAP loan or a current payment plan will now have the option to smoothly transition into monthly ABD, helping them avoid the added expense of delinquency. In fact, almost 10% of the current enrollees have had delinquent taxes in the past. And rounding out our customer experience enhancements, I'm excited to tell you that paperless billing is finally here. I know you've heard us talk about it for a few years, and it seems like it would be simple, but with car ownership in particular, and real estate to a certain extent, it was just very tricky, and we had to make sure we could get approval from both or all owners. So it took some time, but later this week, taxpayers with a CAP profile can opt to receive their annual car and real estate tax bills electronically. And of course, no year would be complete without extensive partnership projects with the county. In the last year, we have helped implement several countywide initiatives, including the solar energy tax credit and the APS Oracle upgrade. We also participated in the county manager's recap working group, and the enterprise payment system, also known as EPS, saw another year of expansion. As you may recall, one of the primary reasons we asked for the additional collector positions last year was to bolster our ability to collect agency debt. In the first half of this fiscal year, we have already collected as much debt as in all of fiscal year 25. We have also improved our delinquent parking ticket collections. At mid-year, we had collected 65% of the total collected last year, and we expect by the end of FY26, we will have collected 30% more delinquent parking ticket payments than last year. We also continue to partner with the county on expanding the enterprise-wide payment system, which I think you know is my all-time favorite project. EPS is now used by 11 of 14 county departments, as well as CAP. Customers can pay fees for 28 different programs that are listed on the slide here through EPS, and 16 of those we added just in the past year. Last year, we were also able to leverage this payment platform to provide a point-of-sale system to the police department when we retired our existing cashiering system, as Carla mentioned earlier. So in FY25, EPS processed over $10 million in payments for county departments and $35 million for CAP payments. We already have several more programs in the queue, and we're looking forward to continuing to work with DTS to offer this payment system to any county department that needs a way to accept payments online or in person.
Now I would like to talk. Turn it off. Now I would like to talk to you about an equity issue that I see impacting our taxpayers, which is the allocation of the state's personal property tax relief. And I do know that you have already had a very robust conversation about this.
Yeah.
But I think that my presentation will add some different images for you. But I do want to make sure you understand that I am voicing my support for the PPTR changes that the manager has proposed. In 2025, the average standard fuel vehicle was allocated only $214 of personal property tax relief, while the average clean fuel vehicle was allocated $483, which is 125% more. In 2025, 14% of vehicles assessed in the county were clean fuel vehicles. On this map, you can see by zip code the areas that have more than the average percentage of clean fuel vehicles and hence receive more tax relief. Under the manager's proposal to better align Arlington's tax support with state funding, relief for the average standard vehicle would be reduced by $1. And I think this was in Danielle's presentation as well, where the relief for more expensive clean fuel vehicles on average would be reduced by $55. The two charts above clearly show that the number of clean fuel vehicles in the county has grown dramatically since I became treasurer in 2014, taking a bigger and bigger share of the state's tax support, even while the PPTR was being reduced for standard vehicles. So we would reduce it for standard vehicles, but there would be so many more clean fuel vehicles that it would take up that and more and require more county support. So they're receiving currently, under the situation we have now, they represent 14% of vehicles, but they receive 26% of PPTR allocation. Now, the chart on the right shows us that the manager's proposal begins to address this directly. Looking forward to the year ahead, we are working with DMF and our bank to implement new fraud prevention enhancements. We have also begun issuing refunds by direct bank deposit. We expect to mail 2,500 fewer refund checks each year, not to mention the corresponding decrease in funds we are required to send Virginia's unclaimed property every year when checks go uncashed. We are also working on the implementation of the new parking enforcement system and the new real estate assessment system. It feels like every time a system is improved in Arlington County, we get to work on that with them. And of course, the ever-continuing expansion of EPS. Next year, we anticipate two major challenges that have the potential to negatively impact tax collection. One is Arlington County's unemployment rate has gone up 55% in the last year, from 2% to 3.1%, making it more difficult for people to meet all of their financial obligations. Second, there's legislation limiting our collection powers for bank and wage liens, which is well on its way through the General Assembly. The result will be definitely a slowing of our tax collections for delinquent accounts, and we expect these new laws to become effective July 1. In summary, the expenses for my department increase $160,000 due to personnel expenditures. Our revenue increases by $17,000 due to the anticipated state compensation board funding, return check fees, and dog licensing fees. But the real revenue increase will not be found on this chart because it's the additional $40 million or so that of taxes and fees that the county receives because of the work done in my office. So thank you for your time this afternoon and the continued support of my office. I welcome your questions, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Treasurer, Ms. De La Pava. I'll open the mic for questions. I guess the only one that I'll have before sharing is just, you can speak a little bit to your sense, 55% increase in unemployment. I believe the last I checked was thousands, but not 5,000 additional Arlingtonians who are seeking work who aren't in a space to be able to find it. Can you speak at all? Some of your earlier slides were about, could ambiguously refer to either an increase in installment plans that is better work by your team, but also could be the changing economy that we're facing, and just wanted to see if you could provide a little context, a little color to the anecdotally or to your sense of the economic challenges that you're seeing sometimes on a firsthand basis, which we also see, but we see in a different way.
So what we see a lot of right now is closing restaurants, businesses, that are struggling. Honestly, we saw a lower number of delinquencies in real estate or accounts that went delinquent after October. And we actually saw fewer vehicle taxes go delinquent. It's out there. I don't think the uptake on payment plans was because of the economy. I think it's that people definitely need. It's really hard with the price of a car right now to come up with the money for those car taxes, which are often unexpected. And even if they paid, they bought the car in November and paid 2 months last year, when they get the full year bill, they're a little astounded. Yeah. And which is why we have worked so hard, and the two programs kind of go together. It's both about helping people afford the taxes that go along with these assets. And we have always had the monthly ABD for real estate. Frank initiated that, before I was even in the county. So, and people really, really appreciate that. We have, 50, we were shocked at the number of people that are signing up for this. 50 a day. We sent out, hopefully everyone here got an email inviting you to sign up for it. The number that I was shocked at was the 10% of, at that moment, 10% had delinquent taxes in the last couple of years. So they're really trying hard, but we have to give them easy ways to do this.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. We masked a little bit in our prior discussions the 19% decrease in office with the overall real estate piece, and I constantly feel like I'm craving better understanding of who is facing the real challenges based on the impacts on our federal employees, and so wanted to ask that question while also being very grateful of the work on the car.
I want to mention one more thing. Even with furloughs, people pay their mortgages. That's the last thing I would think that a person doesn't pay. And when mortgages are the ones that are escrowing for taxes, we won't see it in real estate tax.
Yeah.
Until much later, until houses are foreclosed on.
Yeah.
And then that's a whole different story. But you don't see that right away.
Yeah, well, it's also the question of what stages. I did get an email immediately following one of the Doja. I'm moving to New Mexico. I can't
Well,
afford.
yeah, that's what people will do. Before they get foreclosed on, they'll just move.
Sure.
Sell their houses.
Thank you. Ms. Coffey.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all your work. And, you know, first just start off with two like celebrations of the paperless billing, the tech enhancements in general. I think it makes a huge difference as someone who got a new to me car this year, the ability to just have all of that happen in one portal online. Like it's so seamless at this point, and that makes it much easier for us to collect from people like me who want to pay their taxes when there's not barriers and challenges. And so just celebration and thankfulness on those fronts. On the parking ticket collection side, do we/you have the authority to collect parking tickets from non-Arlington residents or even non-Virginia residents? I know in other places this can be a challenge.
Okay, so absolutely, we have the ability to collect from non-Arlington. Let's call it Virginia, anywhere in Virginia. Once we get outside of Virginia, our options get a little bit more limited because we don't have the same collection powers. Now, if they bank at a bank that is a national bank that have, you know, localities or locations in Virginia, then that's to our favor. But if they don't, and we can't get to their employer because they don't have jobs here, then our hands are a little bit tied.
Yeah.
So yes, that makes it harder. But outside of Arlington, but in Virginia, we still have those same collection powers.
Okay, that's super interesting, and maybe something for us to contemplate legislatively at some point is how, you know, especially for Arlington, when we know so many people are coming from DC or Maryland to here.
Honestly, and it would take the other jurisdictions allowing it, and I think the manager has mentioned a number of times some compacts.
Council of Governments.
Yeah, in the Council of Governments, Clark Mercer and I have had conversations about it, but it is something that is technically and legislatively difficult, but well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, great, thank you. And then I think a probably follow-up question, since we're spending so much time on the PPTRA program, and I think those graphs that you provided, especially the pie charts of the proportion going to clean fuel versus standard vehicles is really interesting. But it would also be interesting to know what the proportion of clean fuel vehicles is in terms of all vehicles, because if it's, you know, 10% of all vehicles and it's getting more than a quarter of our PPTRA funds, then that seems really out of line. But if it's
14%.
14%.
Page 21.
Receive over, at this point, 26%. Honestly, and this is way out of my swim lane, so take it for what it's worth, I don't think that cars that have out-of-state tags should be able to have PPTR, but that would require a legislative change.
Okay. Great. I think that's really a helpful data point as we continue what seems to be a longer and more in-depth conversation on PPTRA.
And any questions that come up that we can help you with, please reach out.
Great. Thank you.
I would just concur with the question that I think Ms. Cunningham was about to ask. As legislative liaison, can we inquire about PPTRA being available for out-of-state tags? That just doesn't seem so great. But I think I saw previously Mr. Carantonis's, oh, you're up there too. Mr. Spain this time. Is that okay, Mr. Carantonis? Thank you.
Well, I know we are, you're trying to meet your 4 PM.
No, I'm so excited. We look like we're on track to, knock wood, get to before 4:30.
Didn't ask 12 questions.
No, this is going to be one. Thank you, Madam Commissioner.
Treasurer.
Treasurer, oh my goodness. I earned that one. Carla and I go way back, so I think, it's okay. And to the Deputy Kim, congratulations here. So I think my question is, and Carla, you and I have had this conversation before, Madam Treasurer. Your mission, right, to bill, receive, collect, safeguard, and disperse county funds. And we're talking about your budget, right? There's a repository, right, of all these funds, financial institutions.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I'm going, don't you?
Yes, you brought it up last year and said you were going to contact me to talk about it.
Oh, okay. So you reminded me in my most tender manner of my failings right now. Let's have a conversation about that. I'm concerned, I'm curious about taxpayer dollars, where they're being held in those financial institutions in and of themselves. Are they good actors, or they have history of discrimination? And where the taxpayer dollars are they within the value proposition of what we have here in Arlington? It's more like ethics, right? So we'll talk about it later.
Yes, let's talk about it later. And I really would like to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I want to say that one of the requirements that we have to have of our banks is absolute first-rate fraud control and internal controls. That's absolutely critical. And literally the amount of money that our national banks invest in technology and fraud is huge. So safety is critical. Now, I said national banks. If you can tell me a national bank that has not been involved in some sort of bad acting, I would be amazed. Let me remind you that the other bank, JP Morgan, that responded to our RFP, had close ties with Mr. Epstein. So we are between a rock and a hard place, trying to get the security and safety we need with the behavior of large banks.
Sure.
So.
More to follow, and I understand our finance board, which serves in an advisory capacity, and there's many others. Thank you for what you're doing in innovation, and we've talked about the paperless aspect, and I think you are moving the needle in so many ways. So, Mr. Chair, I owe our treasurer a separate conversation in the coming months about the art of the possible. Thank you so much and for the presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. I see Ms. Cunningham, and Mr. Carantonis first, and then Ms. Cunningham.
As you wish.
Go ahead.
First of all, Ms. Rutger, it's great to see you here again. So I mean, we had already a prelude to today and a few weeks ago, and now again. And thank you so much for diving deeper into the equity discussions and how within a very limited and limiting taxation system we can at least restore some fragments or notions of equity, because there are many things here. I mean, we didn't even go into the many variations of what can be changed in PPTRA, for example, different franchise amounts for different types of vehicle instead of different.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
illegal.
One thing that did not come out in my presentation is that if we move the minimum of where PPTRA
the
goes
franchise
from
minimum, yeah.
3,000 to 4,000, I send out 11,000 fewer bills.
Yes, which is a logistic and administrative.
And a financial.
Yes, however, it has been a challenge in the last few years that we've seen a lot of vehicles going actually the cheaper bracket or the lower bracket of valuations going actually up instead of depreciating. I mean, we have a lot of things that are very weird right now, or not usual anyway. One thing that I wanted to also add to that is that on your challenges, it's not only unemployment, and I mean, it's also uncertainty. There are a lot of people who actually have employment, but we have seen bigger companies here losing significant contracts, or the entire region being in a far less certain posture. So therefore, the offering installment plans is exceptionally responsive to this. So thank you for that. And I've seen that how smooth it went so far. I mean, I've heard very, very positive comments, especially also on the integration of the front of the storefront, which is your slide number 18. Which I really congratulate you to that. One thing that I missed in your presentation are two things. Number one is the general fiscal health of Arlington County. We are in a high interest rate environment that, you know, with our balances, fund balances, et cetera, we got a little bit more income out of these, but at the same time, it is really risky to go out and issue bonds, et cetera. So I know that the Treasurer's Office has a lot of, is in an advisory and also in a leading capacity in this decision. So I wanted you to a little bit elaborate how we deal with the liquid assets that we have already.
Right now?
Yes, this quarter, for example.
Yes, this quarter. What I have done in the last year, specifically since last January, given that federal funding was so uncertain, and given the kind of chaos coming out of Washington, D.C., I have decided to make all of our investments right now fairly short-term. Actually overnight, so very short term.
Which also costs money, effectively.
It hasn't cost us any money thus far
not yet,
because we have an inverted yield curve, but it is potentially, if the yield curve changes back to a traditional shape, it could cost us money. But right now, it has been the wisest thing in terms of interest income. So when I finally get the ability to predict interest rates, you and I will talk. But right now, I think there is an opportunity to go out. I think that we are projecting that not we, everybody is projecting that interest rates will go down maybe in the next 6 months. And they've moved it. It started out being in March or so, and then they keep moving it out and moving it out. And now that we are faced with what looks to be a war, I'm not sure that interest rates will go down. So again, we haven't lost any money. We've made money because of that decision. And I think that basically the safety of having liquid assets during this time of chaos has been really important.
Yeah, I would add that this doesn't look like a war; it is a war, and it has all the
that was
proverbial consequences of a war,
right.
Which includes the pressure to increase interest rates, inflation, higher costs for basics like fuel, et cetera, and by extension also less investment, higher employment. So that's that's not a good scenario under no circumstances for the homeland here, right?
Yes.
So so I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, how we prepare for that, and thank you for the answer. That was quite reassuring. The third thing is I want to say there are, and I think that we need to monitor that as well. There are Arlington households here in Arlington who do exceptionally well, who will be enjoying amazing income tax rebates and as a result of tax cuts from the big beastie bill. And these for a household over $300,000, this may amount to approximately the total of their property tax liability for a home of around $1.2 million. So this is not there is a balance here that what concerns me the most is the distance that is growing between those who are facing significant headwinds and those who don't face any headwinds at all or have actually favorable winds. And last but not least, I'm growingly concerned about the ability of small businesses, which is 96% of our business licenses, to accurately predict and plan for their tax burden. I've heard that from many taxpayers, especially when demand is up and down and consumer demand is up and down. Consumer demand in our region is down right now. They begin to ask themselves, they've reached thresholds where they have to decide whether they pay rent or they pay their tax. And I just want to flag that because I've seen that more in this last year than I've ever seen that before.
We do have, though, and this makes me so happy, we have 1,200 taxpayers that are trying to pay their taxes on these payment plans. And so I think that makes me a happy person.
Thank you, Mr. Garantonis and Ms. De La Pava. Ms. Cunningham.
Just a couple clarifications. One is lifting that up again. It's really awesome to see all of our community members working to meet their obligations. Like the work that you and the treasurer, you and the commissioner do, and you and the treasurer as well, is really an incredible part of our civic infrastructure, and it's just really important. So thank you for all your work. I wanted to just clarify my understanding in your answer to Mr. Spain's question. All of the funds that you're managing are in kind of cash equivalents or bond or CD type things, right? Or are any of them in mutual funds or investing in particular companies? Can you remind us of the breakout there?
We have the majority of our funds right now in the Virginia Investment Pool, which is, by the Code of Virginia, is one of the funds that is allowed by the Virginia Code. We also have short-term money in the LGIP. What is LG? Local Government Investment Pool. And that's where a lot of our money is. We also have the ability to invest in longer-term investments, but they have to. They're very, very limited. They have to be either AA or AAA rated, and we have in the past invested in agency bonds from Fannie and Freddie that are backed by the government, by the U.S. government. And then we have had in the past, but I don't think we have many right now, invested in individual corporate bonds.
Great. All right. Thank you. So I think there's more conversation to happen there. That's great. Voluntary compliance. So I'm just trying to understand your metrics. So when someone goes to a collection or litigation, it looks like we have a very good return on investment, about 1.7 million per FTE. Do you have a metric that you track kind of year to year, or can you point me to it again, where people are voluntary complying versus becoming delinquent and you need a nudge versus never complying? Is there kind of a simple by tax, by fee?
There's nothing simple. People may want to pay their taxes. They may have moved and we can't find them, so we have to research where they have moved to, and then we call them. Some people hide. Some people have issues with, certain problems in their life that they, need help with. It's varied, and it's really hard to tell the difference. So, for example, we can't find someone, we're getting returned mail, we do a bank lien. They call us up, and now we have them on the phone. Then we can start talking to them about payment plans. So it's really hard to differentiate between all of the different ways that we contact people.
Gotcha. It may be a conversation for next year a little bit, but it'd be interesting and I think helpful if we could say, you know, here are the ones that came in without any contact, in part because they've got a payment plan. Maybe we separate that out. Those that we did one contact and they came quickly because they just hadn't opened the mail, and then on beyond that, because I think that's an important measure of just our civic health, really, as well as, and it's a little hard to tell from all the awesome metrics here. You know, you have to do a lot of more math than, because it's not easy.
And I think we will have better data surrounding that because of the upgrade to our compliance module, because there are things that are going straight to the lien desk, for example, because if they have been delinquent every year for the last 3 years, and the only way we have ever collected from them is through a bank lien, we will send it directly to the bank lien again, because there's no point in trying to call. If it's a first-time delinquent, we will call. If there's all kinds of different ways that we use historical data to adjust the workflow.
Great. And then this is probably a really easy one, but when we collect parking tickets for others, like MWA and Metro, and I don't know what other else, do we get a fee? Do we get some overhead coverage?
We don't. Do we?
I think it's all county revenue.
Oh,
we don't.
I thought she was talking about like Metro lots.
Well, because those
are
those are issued through our system, get into our parking ticket system, and we get we keep the revenue.
I was thinking about the
we keep all the revenue, so it's 100%.
Yes.
There's no additional fee.
Oh,
Perfect.
like
no
at
further
the-
questions.
No, at
Yeah.
the
No questions.
But at the this is what I think happened certainly at the airport. And I'm doing this from memory now, that the county agreed with Metro to get 100% of the revenues of the tickets issued in lieu of providing services for fire and police to the airport. Is that correct, Mr. Schwartz?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that because my memory is a little bit hazy on that.
Maybe there's a possibility for following up with a question a little detailed.
Yeah,
Just
we
so
don't need
you're
to solve it.
tracking,
Just
you know?
curious. I thought it was an easy one, sorry.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you to the entire team who's come here today. You know, you think of I forget what it is and what part of The Economist, when you look, there are multiple other nations that are where Arlington was in the 1960s in terms of payment of taxes. And you have continued a tradition of people paying and doing so professionally and efficiently, and that makes our government more predictable and better servants to our community. And so that's history, but even the innovation and the work that you guys have done this year, we are all very grateful for and really appreciate. And I know there's some other questions to follow up on, but we will find that time. So thank you to you and the entire team. And with that, you guys can stay or shuffle as you wish. I'll just name for colleagues. Today, schedule-wise, was actually relatively easy compared to Thursday. We have a very lengthy set of meetings, and so I will do all I can to provide this run of show to everybody via email a little bit earlier. I also will dig to try and understand the material enough to divide at the right spaces and places. But I think there's a decently heavy lift for this second work session on Thursday with DPR and our discussion of gymnastics and many other topics that will be quite detailed. So I just ask and flag for you guys to help us power up and power through so we can get as far as we can. With that, unless colleagues have additional pieces, yes, Ms. Cunningham.
I do. I think we do have a little bit of time. We don't need to use all of it, but I did have two other questions, if it's all right.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I think one is, it came up a little bit earlier, but on real estate tax relief. I think there's a pain point we've all talked about a fair bit about, if you have a mortgage, we have to give you relief, not deferral, frequently because the lien would disrupt your mortgage. Given the work that you guys do, and thank you for being there with our community members who are often in a difficult financial moment, what advice would you have, having put the TAP program together and others, like how would you recommend that we meet the needs of folks who are facing a financial challenge? Is there any wisdom or thoughts you want to offer about what's worked and not worked on the collection end? So if we go back to the prevention end, when people know that they're facing a year or two of challenge, anything you want to share?
Truthfully, what we can do with real estate taxes when people are struggling and they haven't been on the 12-month program is the TAP loan. That's what we can do. We spread it out for 12 months after the taxes due instead of before the taxes due. So if people could figure out it ahead of time, it would be much less expensive for them. I will tell you that I am negotiating with a bank right now to do our real estate TAP loans at a reduced price of 7.5% instead of 10%. And we will see, hopefully, that come to fruition this year. Given the size of the real estate taxes for TAP loans and the lower default rate on those loans, I think it makes a lot of sense. So I will get back to you on that.
Great. And then I think this one is a broader question for some work over the coming year, but I think the October 1 moment of having personal property tax due and the federal government's end of year, which tends to these days be related to when there are shutdowns, though not exclusively. Is there, I think collectively for all of us, but Mr. Manager, maybe to you first, are there thoughts about how, in addition to the 12-month payment plans, which I think are very helpful, how we might think about shifting due dates, thoughtfully over time, or have we already done that thinking? I think that pain point's going to continue to occur pretty regularly for a bit here.
Yeah, we have looked at that. I think, as a matter of fact, you asked that question in a lot of detail last year. We put together some materials, but there are some statutory deadlines that the treasurer has that when it comes to billing, that sort of limit the flexibility on moving things. Doesn't mean it can't be done, but we'll get back to you with some more details on that.
Okay, great. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Thank you to the entire team. And with that, seeing no further questions, we're adjourned for today. Thank you.
A LinkedIn picture? Absolutely.